got it, but I haven't opened it yet.
Right, you want one? You need a pen?
Yeah. Let's see a moment. That was nice.
You got
I'm your friend.
Did they take attendance? No, I don't think so.
okay.
No. I missed it.
This meeting of the council will come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Here.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Here.
Counsel Hanlon.
Here.
Counsel Mangan.
Here.
Counsel Marchese.
Here.
Counsel McKinnon.
Here.
Counsel Napolitano.
Here.
Counsel Sachetta.
Here.
Counsel Sani.
Here.
Counsel Simonelli.
Present.
Counsel Capone.
Here,
11 members present, Mr. President.
11 members present. You have a quorum. Please stand and salute the flag. If I may, if we could please remain standing. We lost two wonderful people. First, Tony De Innocentis, who, friend to many of us here in this chamber, well-known around the community, good guy, active in many causes. And we also lost Tony Rocco, who is the brother-in-law of our clerk of committees, John Burley. So if we could please just stand for a couple of seconds, a moment silent, I appreciate it. Thank you. Before the clerk reads the first item of business, on a happier note, I want to, from the chair, on behalf of the body, congratulate and wish well wishes to our city clerk, Mike Matarazzo, who recently celebrated his 37th wedding anniversary. So congratulations to you and Denise.
Thank you.
Clerk, read the first item of business, item number 1.
Item number 1, Mr. President, is a public hearing on an ordinance sponsored by Council Capone as president, 12 parties interested in the adoption of the amended administrative code in accordance with Section 5-1 of the Everett Home Rule Charter.
Second.
So moved and second to open to public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You have open to public hearing. All right. So we're going to do, members of the audience, we're having a public hearing. I'm going to state 3 times if anyone's in favor of this piece, would like to speak on it, and then I'll close that portion of the hearing, and then I'll ask 3 times if anyone's opposed to it. So we'll start with in favor. Is there anybody in favor of this piece who would like to speak? Is there anybody in favor who would like to speak on this piece? Is there anybody in favor? Seeing none, that portion of the meeting is closed. Now, is there anyone opposed to this piece who would like to speak? Anyone opposed to this piece? Is there anyone opposed to this piece? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Matter is back before you, councilors.
Can we have a quick explanation of what it actually is?
Sure. Would you like to have Assistant City Solicitor before us?
If we could, please. A motion to have Attorney Rodriguez before us, so.
Do we have a second? Second. Move the second to invite Attorney Rodriguez before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dave, thank you very much. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
Good evening, Dave Rodriguez, Assistant City Solicitor.
Council Marchese.
Yes, Dave, could you explain to us what this actually is, the Section 5-1, the Home Rule Charter?
Section -51 requires and I can read it for you, is the organization of the city's administrative offices, departments, and agencies to be submitted to the council through an administrative order. That's what this is. The admin code itself is roughly 31 pages. It's a comprehensive reorganization and codification of the executive branch for the first time. It's never been done. It takes a lot of existing ordinances that have been drafted and have been in use over time, some of which are a little outdated, some of which are duplicative, some of which are contradictory, and it kind of puts it all in one place.
So the piece that you had before us last week with the new administrative layout, that's all this
That's
really
all,
is?
yeah, that chart represents in visual form the admin code as constructed.
Is there a pro or con to it? It's just a reorganization. Am I
Well,
reading into it?
there are some things that there are some people will notice some significant changes. Through this, we kind of, under the direction of the mayor, we really took a look at how the executive is organized and how it works. So there are some of the big changes you'll see there are some changes down at what is formerly known as City Services. It will be the Department of Public Works. That's a more modern phrase that reflects kind of the mission down there. It was kind of the thought of everybody who worked on this, that every department's in the business of city services. So kind of accurately describing DPW as that. It's a more modern term. It accurately reflects. It organizes that department internally a lot. There's a newly Department of Health and Human Services, which organizes a lot of some of the missions of different offices that normally had been a little spread out. It creates a more cohesive senior staff structure. So the Office of Elder Affairs, the Office of Human Services, the Office of Public Health, the Office of Health and Wellness, and some of the other offices are all condensed within one executive office that reports to a director.
And Dave, will there be a lot of new jobs with this, or are we going to use the
These are
existing
existing
personnel
jobs.
and just
Yeah,
reorganize it?
this is a reorg. There are no new jobs in there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council Sechetta.
Is the chart that you're talking about that's in the annual financial report?
No, it's a different chart. It was distributed last week at the introduction of the code. I can grab you a copy if you'd like.
So there's
It's-
changes in this.
I don't know if there's changes, but I'm not familiar with that document, so I wouldn't feel comfortable expressing an opinion. That's the color one. Yeah, from where I'm sitting, the financial document was drafted before the passage of the code, so they might be competing documents.
Council Sechetta, are you all set? Or do you
Yes,
have-
I'm all set, thank you.
Council Marchese.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Council Hanlon.
Just one, Mr. Chairman, through you to our attorney, our solicitor. This is the section we're talking about that was changed,
That's DPW.
the Public Works?
Yep.
Okay, and I was just quickly looking for the office of the casino.
That's one of the orange blocks towards the end. It's a single block. It doesn't have any offices underneath it. It's the Office of Gaming Accountability and Development.
Okay, should be nothing underneath it, right?
Yeah, it should be a standalone
Okay,
block.
okay.
It's going to be a standalone office.
Those are the two, the big changes?
Yeah, those are the two big changes. There was a cover letter that accompanied the document that outlines. There were some clarifications, some typographical changes that, of course, when you draft a document that big, you find them. So we found some of those. There was a discussion earlier today. We're going to view this document as kind of one as self-evaluation. Is it working? Is it not working? So we're hoping to do a continuing review of the admin code as things progress, as priorities change. So you can expect to see some changes come through to reflect the needs of the administration and the needs to best serve the public, probably every couple months or so, till we'll be able to reevaluate these things. But yes, those are the large changes.
Thank you. I have no,
Okay. Council Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you to the city solicitor. Yeah, it seems like the mayor here is gonna control mostly everything. Is that the, mayor control all departments?
He does already, yeah.
But that's what the chart looked like,
Yeah,
So I think that's good, but, there's gonna be someday, the school department is a part of the city, and someday the mayor's gonna have to do a change and put the mayor in charge of all our departments, including the school committee. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Usual customary things.
If, before we do, from the chair, if you don't mind. Dave, I apologize. I got everything. I've got the chart, I've got the new printout, and I thumbed through it real quickly. I didn't have enough time to really take a good look at it. But it looked like the Office of Health and Wellness was kind of amended a little bit, language in there.
It was, and thank you for bringing, that was the, that was the one that I was struggling with to, the Department of Recreation no longer exists. It's all consolidated within the Office of Health and Wellness with an expanded mission. So not only to provide quality recreational opportunities to the residents, but also to provide a general guidance in health and wellness in kind of a more holistic approach. So.
And then it looks like there was some merger there, and then the Office of Public Health, that looks like it's new.
The Office of Public Health is what is known as the Department of Health now.
Okay.
They manage school nurses. They do some of they're our contact with DPH. They're the specific public health contact in terms of public health emergencies, shelter management, stuff like that.
Okay. And then the last change looks like is the Office of Gaming Accountability and Development.
That's correct.
Now, with regards to that position, again, I apologize not having had a chance to really read through it very, very well. I know that you've been kind of acting in that capacity ex officio at this point for some time frame. The duties that are in there, for now, until we get a little bit further along the line with casino development and all of that, aren't those issues that the solicitor's office could be maintaining? Because I think at one of our committee members, the discussion was that this position is going to be, it's thought to be a temporary one to begin with. If you could speak to that, because again, I didn't have a chance to really read through it quickly, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if those were duties that the city solicitor's office could incumbent now, sharing with some of the department heads, because eventually it sounded like that position was going to get phased out completely, and then the department heads would be responsible for doing whatever they needed to do, and I'm sure with the guidance of the solicitor's office, so.
The question is whether whether the solicitor's office can perform the duties of the Office of Gaming Accountability. I don't think, as currently constructed, they can or they should. The solicitor's office has a very clear and important mission in doing so, and it's a those are full-time jobs that require full-time attention. The Office of Gaming Accountability is a different position in that it's not just looking at some of the legal issues that are involved in kind of viewing it through that prism, but also it's an enormous part of transparency and public involvement in it. There are a lot of plans that are being kind of rolled out and developed to make sure that the project is completed, on time, responsibly, and with the full involvement and support of the city. To be simple, no, I don't think it can. I think, and the mayor's decided, and the mayor has directed us that he thinks this is a critical office and one that should be established.
Okay. And in terms of that particular position, with the slight delay that we have going on with the casino, is that something that could hold off for a little while? Or what's going on now actively, or what needs to go on now actively before everything really moves forward that would say, geez, we really need to move on this?
The delay that you're speaking of specifically, and I'm happy to address that, is the MEPA delay, the municipal Massachusetts Environmental Protection Act permitting issue. That's a delay that we're anticipating, and we had the same question. We asked them about the delay. It's only anticipated to be about 3 months. So it's not an enormous delay, and for all intents and purposes, we are continuing full steam ahead as we were the day before the MEPA certificate was issued, with its conditions by the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. So we're going full steam. You might have seen the part of the workforce, we're spending a lot of time working on workforce development. It is a critical priority for the mayor and for us to make sure that Everett folks are on this Everett job. So you may have seen the labor trade fair that we had at the high school recently. That was a creation of the mayor in this office, that we got things together. We're collaborating with the Metro North Regional Employment Board. I've spoken to representatives from the Springfield Employment Board, find out best practices, what they're working on out there. Folks at CareerSource, folks at Bunker Hill Community College. There are land issues that need to be addressed. The retention of consultants as it relates to permitting and site plan review and other traffic improvements. The traffic improvements themselves need to be dealt with in turn. So there's a lot going on. Believe me, there's a ton going on, enough to support this office and to justify its existence.
And another, a follow-up to a question I asked you before, and I said it before and I'll say it again. I think it's an unfair question to you, because you can't speak for the administration unless there's been discussions. In the event that there were movement of personnel, whoever we anticipate is going to take over this position, that may open up a vacancy in another department. Are we looking to fill that position?
I don't know.
Or-
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah,
And
that's.
it's an unfair question.
Yeah,
to
that,
ask.
I mean, that's, perfectly honest, it's above my pay grade. So,
Okay. The only other question I have for you is on the chart itself.
Yep.
Under the Department of Public Works.
Yep.
Far left-hand side, it looks like fleet management comes out of operations.
yeah, it's going to be,
Is that a reclassification, or is it?
it's not a reclassification. Fleet management is primarily an operational function at a DPW, and it's just to reflect that fleet management to be directly supervised by the operations manager, who is in turn second in command
Okay.
down at DPW.
I have no other questions. Counsel, thank you very much. Counsel McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. President, to our solicitor.
Assistant, oh yeah,
We don't
don't, yeah,
want to give you a raise yet. Hold on.
you, talking about pay grades, I don't know.
Nice pay grades.
Right now, so this, the function of this right now would be to assist with permitting, state permitting, make it a smooth transition.
This is the Office of Gaming you're talking about,
Yes.
yeah.
And you're currently going to be filling that position?
Think of it this way, the Office of, they're going to quarterback the project from the city side. There's a lot of issues, they're cross-jurisdictional issues. The project itself doesn't fit neatly within one department, and it would involve the work of several departments, devoting an enormous amount of time. To put it on any one department or expect any department to absorb that type of workload right now would jeopardize current level of service to other things. So if we consolidate that, we know it's a temporary project. To consolidate, we are expecting spin-off development, so we want to be able to free up the departments to deal with those developments as well. We know that it's temporary, so to consolidate it and then phase it in makes the most sense from a management perspective.
So, we're gonna be utilizing our personnel in the city
Yep.
to actually do this?
Yep,
So-
that's the expectation.
That's safe to say, correct?
Yes.
That we will- Okay.
Yes.
And what other, who would be involved with that? That's what I'd like to know. Like what departments? would
Could you be,
involved with it?
could you be, more cl- we've talked about, we have a weekly wind coordination meeting that we talk about, that's attended by ISD, DPW, fire, sometimes police, planning, our traffic engineer, and we identify issues all the time. We're having another separate meeting with, it depends on what we're talking about that week, and we'll bring in identification of different issues. There are environmental issues, there are permitting issues, there are planning issues, there are permitting issues, there are civil engineering issues. It's very complicated, very complex, so we want to make sure that all our bases are covered. We get one chance to do this right, and we want to make sure that it gets done that way.
Will we be compensated for this?
It's our expectation that that's the case, yeah.
How would that be happening?
It's currently being negotiated under the provisions of the host community agreement in lieu of a building permit, because to take a building permit is
It's
15,000.
not drafted into the host community agreement now, correct?
The actual costs of what it takes from the city's tasks to construct the facility, yes, that is constructed within the host community
So
agreement.
that's in there, but anything additional?
It's just a matter of what the amount is. That's all we're gonna go back and forth about. And that will include the Office of Gaming, percentages for each department as they spend time, because they will spend time regardless if the office is completed or not, as well as outside consultants that we're going to have to employ for commissioning services, for civil.
They've been looked at yet, the outside consultants?
We actually, today, we did a bid opening for we issued an RFR, request for responses for commissioning services and plan review. We received four responses, and we're reviewing those now. We are expecting to, and I did receive a proposal for civil engineering and site plan review services to go forward, and we're expecting to have transportation infrastructure proposals within the next week or so.
Okay.
The amount of money that is, and so in lieu of charging $15 per thousand, which would be a very difficult number to establish based upon the cost of construction when you're building a deck
Can you
or
say that again? What was it?
the building permit fee
Yeah.
is $15 per thousand,
Okay.
minimum $40. So if you're building a bathroom and it costs $10,000, it's a $150 permit fee. For a project like this, the hard construction costs are going to be very hard to pin down. Is it going to be $1 billion? Is it going to be 1.2? And even if that was the case, and we were to assess that fee, we are not allowed under current law to assess a permit fee in excess of what it actually costs us to issue the permit. That would constitute an unlawful tax, and the SJC has been very clear on that. The Emerson College sued the city of Boston. and they
So
won.
basically, we can gain from the permitting 12%?
We cannot gain from the
Cannot
permit.
gain
Yeah,
from
we
the
cannot gain. So the best position when we were negotiating the host agreement, we understood that we don't currently, no city of our size has the resources to permit something like this. They don't. This is the largest single-phase economic development project in the history of the Commonwealth. So any city of our size that would have to absorb that sort of, that project would be, they'd spend a lifetime doing it. So you have to get the resources to do that. So we approached Winnie, we said, we want to build it on time, we want to build it on your time frame. We need you give us the resources to do it. They said, okay, we will, in lieu of the building permit. So that's that number that gets negotiated. And so I've worked very closely with the CFO to develop a budget structure on how it's going to work. We just have to plug in amounts, and we're waiting on some information from Win in order for us to do that.
Why I'm asking this, I asked you in committee as well.
Yeah,
so-
that's fine.
and-
And I'm happy to provide the information to everybody.
Do you feel more comfortable with having a CFO come up, or?
No, there aren't any numbers plugged
There's
in,
no
but the
numbers.
budget structure exists. It's very similar to, under Rich's guidance, it's going to look very much like an enterprise fund that isn't an enterprise fund. With chargebacks and with other things that every year we go to Win and say, this is the amount, say, okay, they cut us a check, and there it goes. Subject to appropriation, of
And that
course.
would be negotiated with Win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And that, by the way, Counselor, that's not going to be a small number. That's going to be a pretty big number.
I can foresee that.
Yeah,
I hope.
it's going to be a pretty big number.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Moved and second, excuse customary, thanks, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. What's your pleasure, council? What's the pleasure of council?
Oh, yeah.
I'll move
What's the
for
pleasure of
favorable
council?
action.
Is there a second? Moved and second favorable action, clerk call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Mangan.
Yes.
Counsel Marquez.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sechetta.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
11 yeas, 0 nays, you have enrolled. At this point, we could probably open it for public participation. No, we got past the public
Make a motion to open
hearing.
public participation.
Moved and second to open for public participation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Open for public participation. There was no one on the sign-in sheet at that time. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to participate in public participation? Anyone have anything they'd like to talk about? Okay, seeing none? It's been moved and second to close public participation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have closed participation.
Bring up the
There,
license.
on the sign-in sheet, councilors, we've got some individuals here. There is an individual here for number 20. The chair would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and take item number 20. Move the second, take item number 20, suspend the rules, take item 20. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You're so moved. Clerk, please read item number 20.
Item number 20, order sponsored by Councilman Capone as President, Committee on Community Business Development reported on petition for a set-class motor dealer license from Romulo Aguilar, DBA Spring Cars Incorporated, 152 Ferry Street, property owner Ferry Corporation. A recommendation for favorable action with stated restrictions.
Favorable action on the order?
Second.
With the restrictions.
With the restrictions.
Moved and second for favorable action with the restrictions. Clerk, call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
No. Yes.
We need to accept the
Accept the
committee report.
communication, we'll accept the committee report. Okay, it's moved and second to accept the committee report, favorable action on the piece as amended, with the restrictions, rather.
With the
Clerk
restrictions.
will call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon. Yes. Counsel Mangan.
Yes.
Counsel Marquez.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano?
Yes.
Counsel Sechetta?
Yes.
Counsel Sani?
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli?
Yes.
Counsel Capone?
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
11 yeas, 0 nays, you have granted the petition. There is some individuals here, I believe, on item number 18. Chair would entertain a
Take a
motion
motion,
to
take item 18?
Second?
move and second suspend the rules, take item number 18. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk will read item number 18.
Item number 18, Mr. President, is an order sponsored by Counsel Fred Capone as President, Committee on Community and Business Development Report on a petition for lodging house license from David A. Molly, DBA Fennos Lodging at 336 Broadway.
Accept the committee report and place on file.
Second.
And favorable action on the audit.
It's been moved and second to accept the committee report and act favorably on the petition. Clerk will call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Mangan.
Yes.
Counsel Marquez.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sechetta.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
11 yeas, 0 nays, you've granted the petition. Clerk will read, there is an individual here for item number 19.
Make a motion to take item 19, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Moved and second to suspend the rules, take item number 19. All in favor?
Aye.
You have so moved. Clerk will please read item number 19.
Item 19 is the Committee on Community Business Development report on a petition for a second-class motor dealer license from Salomeo S. Jr., property owner DBA Inman Motor Sales of Somerville under applicant's legal name of Top Cars of Boston LLC, 1760 Revere Beach Parkway, Everett, Mass., with a recommendation for favorable action with stated restrictions.
Accept the committee report. Accept the committee report, place on file
Favorable action.
with the restrictions.
Okay.
Chairman.
Favorable action.
It's been moved and second to accept the committee report and move favorably on the petition as, with the restrictions in place.
Mr. Chairman,
On the piece, Counselor
motion,
Hanlon.
I'd like to add a further restriction, Mr. Chairman. Further
Go right ahead.
restriction would be no carnival atmosphere.
We already have that on.
No, not on this one.
Oh, it was on the other, I'm sorry. Yeah.
On
19.
19. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All right, so now we have a motion to accept the committee report and vote favorably on it with, as amended with the restrictions and the additional restriction that was just placed before you. Clerk will call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Mangan.
Yes.
Counsel Marquez.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sechetta.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
11 yeas, 0 nays, you've granted the petition. There is, I believe our Assistant City Solicitor is here on, if I'm reading the numbers correctly, I think number 4 and number 22.
Make a motion to take item 4, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second. It's been moved and second, suspend the rules, take item number 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The clerk will please read item number 4.
Item number 4 is an order sponsored by Counsel Capone as president to submit Lower Broadway Urban Renewal Plan to the Department of Housing and Community Development for final approval. It is honored the mayor is hereby authorized to provide approved minor non-substantive language changes to the plan if such changes are recommended by the Department of Housing and Community Development during the final review process.
On the piece.
This,
Counsel Marquez,
does this get referred back to the clerk for a,
Public hearing?
a public hearing?
I believe so.
So should we discuss anything tonight or just refer it to the clerk for a public hearing?
I'll make a motion to refer to the clerk on public hearing.
I'll second.
Second.
We discuss tonight, we're gonna forget in 2 weeks. so.
It's been moved and second to refer this to our clerk to schedule a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You have referred item number 4, and I believe the last piece is
22?
item number 22.
Take item 22, Mr. Chairman, motion.
Second?
Moved and second to take item number 22. All in favor? All opposed? Clerk will please read item number 22.
Item number 22 is an order sponsored by Counsel Capone as president. City accept the provisions of Chapter 43D, the Mass General Laws as amended pursuant to Section 11 of Chapter 205 of the Acts of 2006, and approve the filing of an application with the Interagency Permitting Board for the designation of land located at 1 Horizon Way, Everett, Mass., known as the Monsanto Chemical Company site, as shown on Assessors Map H6, Parcel 191, as a priority development site, or take any action in relation thereto.
On the piece, what's the pleasure of the council?
Could we have Assistant Solicitor, Mr. Rodriguez before us, please?
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and second to have Assistant Solicitor Rodriguez before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Dave.
I'm waiting for you guys to say no one day and just kick me out of the chamber.
Never do that. So probably the best thing is to, whatever the council wants to do, have an overview of what this is it, or does anyone have questions they want to ask?
I just want a quick
Councilman Casey.
overview of
Yeah.
it, that's all.
This
I'm
is,
fine with that.
you should have, yeah, I delivered to each counselor today, when I'm pinch hitting for the planning department tonight, but I delivered a package to everyone today that outlines some of the details of what Chapter 43D is, and what a PDS is, a priority development site. Under the Gaming Act, under Section 96 of the Chapter 194 of the Acts of 2011, as we are a 43D accepted community, we're required to designate this as a priority development site for the purposes of expedited permitting. The permits that are included within that, and it's not saying that they are absolutely guaranteed to get the permit, but that we have to do it within a certain timeframe. This does not include building permits. It does not include approvals not required, and it does not, include site plan. Actually, it does include site plan review. All it means is that once they submit their application for that, we have to act on it within 180 days. We can't sit on it. And again, it's required under the Gaming Act for us to designate this as a priority development site. In your packet, you will have a copy of Section 96 of 194. You'll have a quick fact sheet on what Chapter 43D details and what a priority development site is, a fact sheet on that as well as a map of the site itself.
If I may, David, so, yeah, and what was the limit is 5 years? This will last up to 5 years, or?
It's in perpetuity,
Oh, it's in
unless you
perpetuity.
change it.
Okay, I
Yeah,
thought that
unless you
was it would
unless
end
you
in 5
change it.
years. That
Yeah,
was the question.
yeah, unless you change it.
I'm fine, but thank you.
Council DeFlorio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Rodriguez. This is something that we don't have to vote on tonight, right? Is it gonna, if we vote on this tonight, do we have to vote on this tonight, or can we wait until the fall?
There's no pressing need to do it tonight. This is not, this is one of the boxes we have to check off as part of the project, because it's required under the Gaming Act. I've advised the Gaming Commission, they've asked for an update on it. They're happy with our progress thus far. So you can, of course, it's up to your judgments as whether to act on tonight. It's pretty straightforward. There really isn't, it's not a really controversial designation. We've designated sites like this in the city before. We are a 43D community, so I'm happy to answer any questions continuing or otherwise, but there is no pressing deadline for us to get this done tonight.
Okay. Well, we just received this tonight. I would
Yep.
like to have time to go over it
Sure.
and look at it before I make that decision. But at the same time, I don't want to hold anything up.
Sure.
So if you could wait for 2
Well,
weeks, that's my preference.
as soon as we get the local approval, then we can begin the application process. So that's the only thing we're waiting on is the local
So
approval.
if we don't approve this, we're not going to be able to do the application process.
We can prepare the application, but it's one of the documents that we have to attach before it goes to the interagency permitting board for their approval, as it requires local approval first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Council
Chairman.
Sechetta.
Yes, in brief, could you explain this in a couple of paragraphs before I read this, so I'll understand what I'm reading?
Sure. A priority development site is a site or sites that can be parceled together that the city determines are a priority for development. In doing so, they're saying that we're going to expedite the permitting, and of course, not saying that we're obligated to issue the permit. This council unfortunately cannot delegate that power. They can't force somebody to issue a permit that's under their jurisdiction. What they can say is that this site is a priority for us to develop, and once you get the application, you have to act on it within a certain amount of time. So that it just makes sure that the wheels keep moving. That's all we're doing.
Council Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're just talking about 96 and 34D, right? Chapter?
We talked about, there's two separate different laws that are included. It's one that's a session law, section 96 of chapter 194 of the Acts of 2011. That's been attached. That's, chapter 194 of the Acts of 2011 is the Expanded Gaming Act. And then chapter 43D, which is the process of which we've accepted that local law, and that allows us to go.
Okay, you've included 97, 98, 99, 100. That, we're not talking about those.
No. Yeah, it just printed out on the page. Yeah, you don't have to worry about those sections. By all means, if you want to read it, it's good.
I will read
It's
it.
good night table reading.
Yeah, 97
It'll
is
put you to
about
sleep.
Gaming Commission, but the others aren't.
Yeah, it'll put you to sleep, but it's good stuff.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to excuse customary thanks.
Excuse customary thanks. Second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Favorable action, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Council McKinnon? Did you-
On the motion, can we hold it over for 2 weeks? I
If
think
that's-
that,
Withdraw my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to hold it over for 2 weeks.
Is there a second? Moved and second to lay this over to our next meeting? All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have laid item number 22 over to our next meeting. I believe we are back to the normal
That's good.
routine, and the clerk will read the next item of business, item number 2.
Item number 2 is an order sponsored by Council Fred Capone as president to appoint Jerome K. Bowen Sr. and 18 others listed to be sworn ways for District Gas of Massachusetts Corporation at 18 Rover Street for an unpaid term of 1 year expiring April 19, 2016.
Second motion.
Second.
Moved and second favorable action, clerk call the roll.
Council Delasola.
Yes.
Council DeFlorio. Yes. Council Hanlon.
Yes.
Council Mangan.
Yes.
Council Marquez.
Yes.
Council McKinnon.
Yes.
Council Napolitano.
Yes.
Council Sachetta.
Yes.
Council Sani. Council Simonelli.
Yes.
Council Capone.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
10 yeas, 0 nays, you have appointed the individuals. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 3.
Item number 3 is an order sponsored by Council Fred Capone as president to accept a donation of $1,500 from Gerald Barbarian to the Department of Veteran Services.
Favorable action.
Second motion.
It's been moved and second to accept the donation.
Accept the donation, send a letter of thanks to Mr.
Second.
Varian for a very generous donation to the Veterans Services.
And it's been moved and second to accept the donation, send a letter of thanks to Mr. Barbarian for his generous donation. All those, clerk will call the roll.
Council Del Solo.
Yes.
Council DeFlorio. Council Hanlon.
Yes.
Council Mangan.
Yes.
Council Marquez.
Yes.
Council McKinnon.
Yes.
Council Napolitano.
Yes.
Council Sachetta.
Yes.
Council Simonelli.
Yes.
Council Capone.
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
9 yeas, 0 nays, you have accepted the donation.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
It is.
Yeah, Mr.
Counsel
Chairman,
Hanlon.
could you poll the audience and see if they're waiting for anything else to come up?
Sure. Are there any individuals in the audience that are here for any particular pieces?
Seeing none?
Seeing none?
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Good point. We are at item number 5.
Item number 5 is an order sponsored by Council Fred Capone as president, transfer the amount of $1,110 from the CIP stabilization fund to the capital improvement plan to fund listed projects.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, can we ask the clerk to read those items?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, you mean 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
The items that are,
and 10?
5 and 5. Well, eventually, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Item number 5, item number 6, 5, an order sponsored, I just read that one. Transfer the amount of you mean the individual? I know what you mean. I'll read the communication. I hereby request the amount of $1,110 be transferred from the CIP stabilization fund to the various capital improvement plan accounts. This appropriation request ties to the amended CIP adopted at the 4/13/15 City Council meeting. This will fund the following projects: police prisoner transportation vehicle, $50,000; police portable radios, $100,000; fire turnout gear, $100,000; 2 Ford ISD, 2 Ford Escapes, $60,000; DPW, 3 Ford Escapes, $90,000; DPW excavator, $95,000; DPW 4-ton roller, $40,000; DPW skid steer Bobcat with attachments, $70,000; DPW EHS lighting, stadium lighting, $125,000; Officer Public Health, 1 Ford Escape, $30,000; Planning and Development, Webster Street Top Lot Design Construction, $200,000; Planning and Development, Glendale Park Playground Equipment, $150,000; for a total of $1,110,000.
Council Marquez,
Very quickly, this is just money that we approved last week, right, we voted for, so all we're voting for is the allocation of funds to go forward with this, right?
Yes.
I think these pieces, if I remember correctly, I don't think that there was a lot of debate over these particular
No.
items. But
Favorable action on the order.
Counselor Sachetta, did you have a question?
Yes, on these Ford Escapes that we're buying, I happened to notice, watching an advertisement on the TV the other night, these Ford Escapes, they're SUVs, is that correct?
Would you like to have someone up to
I'd like
address
to
that?
have someone explain that to me.
Is Rich Viscay?
Yeah.
Would you like to have the order?
He knows everything else.
Okay,
Second.
talk about-
Moved second to have Rich Viscay before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rich, thank you very much. If you could, please, for the record, introduce yourself.
Richard Viscay, City Auditor.
Yeah, are these Ford Escapes, are they SUVs?
They're like, they're smaller versions of SUVs. They're not the big ones. They actually comply with our Green Communities Act. They're fuel-efficient vehicles that, they do have a hatchback for some storage in the back, but they're not full-size SUVs. I think they're only four-cylinder vehicles.
Would it be cheaper to get a regular Ford Fusion or something to that effect?
We just figured with the weather and the way the roads and the hills are here, we wanted something with four-wheel drive.
Or
And
that
that's a-
four-wheel drive?
And they're comparable in price, and they're fuel efficient, so
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Counselor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tiscay, $1,110,000. Each item is for one particular vehicle, or for two particular vehicles, or whatever it is. Like we were just talking about, let's say the ISC, the two Ford Escape, $60,000. It's gonna be, I'm gonna pull it out of my head, $58,500, let's say. What happens to the other $1,500?
If it doesn't get expended, we just turn it back to general fund free cash, but there's,
Would
you
we?
put a little extra money in there just so you can get your label and your lights or whatever kind of
Okay.
add-ons you need. But yeah, anything that's not expended on the vehicle, we'll close it out and go back to fund balance.
Okay.
Any other questions? Counselor McKinney.
And Mr. Viscay, this amount of money is only gonna be utilized for those things that were stated by our city clerk, correct?
That's correct. They'll have individual line items in the
So it'll
particular
be
budgets.
almost like a line item type deal coming up?
Each one of them will have its own line item. In some cases, 3 vehicles, we won't have 3 line items. We'll have 1 line item, but we'll buy the 3. I mean, we'll appropriate, we'll spend it for the purposes it was appropriated for.
Thank
sure.
you.
You're welcome.
Any other
Tell you
questions?
Excuse with customary things.
If I may,
Why don't
from
we
the
just
chair.
stay here, remain
Okay.
here?
If I may, from the chair, the more I think about it, Rich, with the various vehicles, I know some things you need specific items on them, but why did we as a community ever get away from auto hire and things of that nature, paying for mileage? Would that be financially more affordable?
We still do it in some cases, and in a lot of cases, especially down in city services, DPW is, there are people using their own vehicles for this now, so, I mean,
Is that
either way it
feasible?
works, there's some insurance liability issue. You're supposed to tell your insurer that you're driving your car for the city. You might have to pay different insurance. It gets a little bit, hairy. So this is, a city-marked vehicle. It should be, labeled as such. And the
Sure.
residents can see the employees out there, what they're doing. It gives you some, notice that we're out there doing our job. And, we are short vehicles, so a lot of these are just giving people vehicles in the Ford Escapes that actually have been using their own car and haven't been getting mileage reimbursement. So we do still do it, though. I think it's better served for if you go to a conference and you drive there and you come back and you get reimbursed for your car. But anyone who's driving around day to day, I think it's only fair to have a city vehicle.
Right, and I understand the need to have it clearly marked for safety of the residents. With regards to the financial impact on that, like, what's the life expectancy on these vehicles? What are we guessing our useful life is going to be on them?
I mean, from bonding purposes, it'd be a 5-year bond. We're not bonding it, but I mean, I'd like to think you'd get, 5-10 years out of a vehicle
Right.
anyway. Depends how often it's used, what it's used for. I mean, everything's
Sure.
circumstantial, but I suppose if you're just driving around and doing inspections or keeping an eye on the employees, it's not a grueling,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stop and go, city driving. We
And
try
then
to,
that does do wear and tear on vehicles.
try to get
and
the
I
same
that.
vehicles, hopefully, you know, if you get a bad year of a bad make of a car, I mean, things could happen. I don't think we had a lot of luck with our
Yeah,
Dodge Chargers, for instance, but these are supposed to be pretty good, reliable, fuel-efficient vehicles.
Some of the things I was kicking around, I understand the desire to have uniformity of appearance, safety, all that. I was wondering from a bottom line standpoint, financially, because you've heard it a million times from this council. It's a tough economy. We're in a tough way. We've got tons of projects that we need to do in the city. We want to stretch our dollar as far as we can. And I was kicking around ideas of leasing versus purchasing. And then I didn't know why we would go away from the auto hire. As far as identity, we could probably get, you know, those magnetic things that you put on the sides of cars when it's being used for official business. You could put those on the sides. And then you're basically doing auto hire and mileage. It's not a very large community, so it is stop and go traffic, which is difficult on a vehicle. But it's a very small community. So I don't know if it's money well spent to have so many, because it is just these departments. We've got multiple vehicles that are being, right here tonight, there's 6 vehicles. You know, you're looking at about $180,000. And then I know that there are other departments that are looking for vehicles. So collectively, when you start adding all of these vehicles, it does create quite a bit of an expense. So I don't know if we would be better served to auto hire and pay mileage versus actually going out and purchasing vehicles or leasing them instead. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
In most cases, when you do a lease, you do a lease with a dollar buyout. So you mean, you can lease a vehicle. Most capital leases, it's just a way of financing them without actually saying you're going to have to sell bonds. So you could do capital leases for 3 years, have a dollar buyout, and you'd still own the vehicle. You can, if you had money issues that you didn't have enough money to put up. I mean, the way we've presented this is money that we've put away from one-time revenue for free cash for capital improvements. Vehicles are needed pretty badly. We had a rough winter, and I think it's personal preference. I suppose you can have everybody put magnetic signs on their car and drive around and try to look professional and uniform and pay them a 57 mile per gallon, 57 cents per mile rate. But I think it's, in this city, it's a little tough because I don't know that federal rate really justifies the driving. And if you're driving out on Mass Pike, going out to Worcester every day, it's one thing, but, you know, 15 miles a day in this city is pretty hard on your car, and it's not really I don't think it's a fair compensation to give someone 57 cents a mile for their personal use vehicle if they use it every day. I think that purpose is served better for if someone has to go on a training or a couple of days away for a conference, reimburse them for a car. It's not like we have a car pool that we sign in and out, but any department that has a vehicle that needs to drive day to day as a supervisor or a superintendent, I think that these vehicles are they're not a waste of money. They're needed, and I think it adds to the professionalism and way we do our business here. So we could lease, but I think at the same time, we would just be spending a little extra on premium as far as the interest rate that you would get charged. So we have the cash in our stabilization account, and it's for capital, and we pick these types of expenditures because they're affordable, and we're able to pay for them with one-time money and not any adverse effect on taxes, et cetera.
And then one last question for you. Are there any hidden expenses with taking on additional vehicles for the city in terms of insurance premium or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we have insurance costs, of course, but in
Is
some
it per
cases-
vehicle, though, as we pick up another vehicle, or do
Yeah,
we
we
have
add
a
and
certain
delete
number
them
of
just like
vehicles?
anybody else. We have a policy. I don't think we add and delete every vehicle every time we get it. We pay a bulk rate for the year, and then we reconcile what vehicles came off and went on, and we'll do the math at the end. But we're covered for every vehicle in the city. In the cases where we take off old vehicles, there might be less fuel, you know. We have to have fuel-efficient cars with the Green Communities Act, so these are gonna save money on gasoline versus the replacement car, probably save money on maintenance, but it may cost a little more money because it's a newer car with a higher value. So it's nominal, I'd say, though, in the scope of $191 million budget.
Okay. And what would you anticipate the typical insurance per vehicle we're paying in the city? Rough ballpark.
$1,000, very rough. I mean, we have a policy for probably 180 vehicles, and it's a couple $100,000, and how that's all broken out is something I couldn't rattle off the top of my head for you, but I could try to get you that information.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. Any other members have any questions?
Will be excused, customary thank, but he can sit
Want me to
right
stay
there.
here for the next
Yeah,
four?
please.
I guess we have a few, yeah, sure. It's been moved and seconded, excuse customary thanks. On the peace, councilors, what's your pleasure?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, favorable action. Clerk, call the roll.
Counsel Del Sol.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hammond.
Yes.
Counsel Manning.
Yes.
Counsel McKinney.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Sarchet.
Yes.
Counsel Stein.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays. Counsel Marquez.
We have an amended tally.
11 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President.
11 yeas, 0 nays. You have passed the order. I've been handed a note. I think that we have some other items. Are you here for 15?
I'm here as long as you need me.
Here all week? Oh, actually, there's 21.
We have a sign-in sheet, there's people in the audience, because Mr. Biscay has to stay here all night anyway, so.
So, from this list, it looks like item number 21.
We did ask that.
Yeah, nobody got up and said it.
So Chair would entertain a motion, Chair would entertain a motion to suspend the rules, take item number 21.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved and second to suspend the rules, take item number 21. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Clerk will please read item number 21.
Item number 21, Mr. President, resolution sponsored by Counsel Rosa DeFlorio, that the administration are looking to buying a snow melting machine for the city of Everett.
Council DeFlorio.
Now that we don't have any snow, I'm not interested anymore. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask that question for the future. It's not something that we have to buy right now, but to have the administration look into it and to see how much it costs. I mean, I'm not saying go out and spend $5 million, because we may not need it for another 100 years.
Council,
So-
did you want to have someone up, or did you?
Sure. So I'd like to
Who
know
would you
if
like?
someone has looked into it, if they need further time till next November, December.
Who would you like up?
I guess
Rich?
Mr. Biscay.
Okay. Is there a second to have Richard before us? Moving second to have Richard Skate before us. All in favor?
And
Opposed?
Jerry
Thank you.
Navarro, the head of the city service director at the moment.
Jerry Navarro as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Jerry, if you could please just introduce yourself for the record.
Jerry Navarro, DPW Director. Good
Council
evening.
DeFlorio.
I know we've had the worst snowstorm in 100 years, but there's always gonna be some kind of a snowstorm. And basically, what I was trying to do is, and I know this might take a while on the study, is that, how much does it cost us to get rid of snow? You know, you have like trucks, you have trucks coming, they have to pick up the snow, they have to load the snow, and then you have to go dump it. So I'm looking to see a balance, in other words, how much would a snow melting machine cost? And to see if it's feasible for us to buy a snow melting machine.
Well, you want to answer that or you want? We have various sizes of, they can range from anywhere from $300,000-400,000 up to $1 million.
Actually, I got one here. Yeah, they have giant snow melting machines. We went on the internet and just found a couple. They have one here called the Snow Dragon SND 900 Snow Melter. It costs $230,000. It hitches onto a dump truck, and you can tow it around behind you. And, let's see, it says it could burn 240 cubic yards per hour of snow. Not sure how much that is, but, I'll tell you, the thing that jumps out at me is this fuel consumption on this vehicle.
I
It
was gonna
burns, it
ask.
burns about 60 gallons of fuel per hour, so, I mean, the affordability of the machine, $229,000, we're buying some equipment that's similar in price, but, you know, it says it's up to 60 gallons per hour max fuel consumption, so I don't know the math on how much that's worth to melt it versus haul it and move it. And we could certainly try to do some rough estimates. You know, we pay dump trucks, I don't know, maybe $140 an hour, so you're paying the labor there, and then someone, if it's not a city park, you have to pay someone usually to store that snow, but I mean, it'd be a good cost accounting exercise, I suppose, but this particular equipment is, it's available, and it's just very expensive to run, and I imagine it's probably pretty expensive to maintain or fix if it goes down, but
Well,
I
I
did want to
figured
get you some
after-
information as you asked, so we did do some research.
Okay, yeah. I figured after the budget is over, I didn't want you to be bored for the summer, so that could be a problem.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
There goes my vacation.
But yeah, I would like to see more of a study. I mean, not something that you would jump on. If it would be something worth us buying that would eventually save the taxpayers money, not add to it.
Well, hopefully we don't have to endure another winter like that.
Well, that's one thing unfortunately, I hope not myself, but we're always gonna have snow at some point or another, whether it's a lot, a little, or, you know. But, so that's my recommendation, just to do a study, nothing that has to be done right away. That's it, thank you.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. Some of the questions I had, you actually answered. 60 gallons per hour, you know, in researching the information, like to get a better idea of how many hours. I know, talking to some of our counterparts in Boston, you know, they were running the machines around the clock. You know, 60 gallons per hour can run into a substantial amount of money. Especially if either way, you're still paying to transport the snow from wherever it is to that point as
Correct.
well. Currently, we're dumping it we have a spot, we've had spots to be able to dump it, and then we let nature take its course. But we're still gonna be dumping it in those same spots, so we're still gonna have that cost, and this is gonna add an additional cost and overhead to this.
Correct.
I'd also be very interested in finding out what liability, as far as, is there special training required, what that annual cost is, and, you know, if there's, what other insurances, special insurances are involved in a piece of equipment like this. Again, I did have an opportunity to shoot into town and do a little research on my own, and I think that, though in theory it's a great idea, I think in cost-wise, we're looking at a very substantial amount of money when we utilize it. And if we don't use it, we have a couple of light winters, what's the wear and tear for that apparatus just to be sitting around? You know, what's required to maintain it? So there's a lot more to it than just the cost. And if you could find that additional information in your research, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilor Marquez.
Did you say it was 60 gallons or 600 gallons?
No, 60 gallons per hour.
60 gallons.
Max, this is fuel consumption, 40 to 60 gallons per hour max.
And that's probably the smallest one you're looking at there.
Well, there's a smaller one here, there's one that, these both hitch on to a truck.
Yep.
They have a smaller one that's meant for parking garages, so you can get it up to the top floor of a parking garage and melt snow up there. This
the-
one, I don't think that's too practical. This one, I'll read it quick, it's,
How big is it, the dump?
I believe that's a small scale vault they
it
have
says
out
Snow
there.
Dragon SND 900 is designed to use at strip mall, schools, parking lots, and is ideally configured for landscapers and contractors. This rugged unit economically melts 240 cubic yards of snow per hour, or the equivalent of 14 to 16 tandem truckloads per hour. So I would figure how much does it cost us to haul 14 to 16 truckloads per hour? You know, with the proximity to where you're dumping it, you can probably do a little cost accounting and get an idea if it's worth it or not.
Yep.
You know, there's the questions that you've asked, obviously, add into it, but.
Well, Rich, on the other hand, if you had one that was maybe a little substantially bigger, when the snow's over, there could be neighboring towns and cities that are looking for places to dump, which wouldn't cost us to haul it. You know, we'd have just maybe dump it, front load it into it.
Yeah, these models I happen to pull up are ones that are meant to be hitched onto a dump truck.
Dump truck.
I'm sure there are bigger ones that are mobile and you take it there and melt it, but I'm not an expert, but I wanted to try to pull something I thought that was relative to what we were talking about here. I mean, I'm not gonna go down and get an airport ice melter for the city, but something like this seemed to make more sense if you drag it down to a neighborhood and you're clearing tight streets or what have you.
Well, thank you, I'm all set.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Been moved and second, excuse customary thanks. Oh, okay. If that's the pleasure of the council, gentlemen don't mind sitting tight, we'll run through our list. What's the pleasure on the piece?
Let's grant further time until first week in October.
Second?
Been moved and second to grant further time till the first week in October. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have referred it to the first meeting in October. Clerk, well, actually, we have, I think, item number 26 is also these gentlemen, so Chair will entertain a motion to suspend the rules, take item number 26. Move second, to suspend the rules, take item number 26. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. Clerk, will please read item number 26.
Item number 26, resolution sponsored by Council Michael Marquez, that the Water Department reduce all abatements issued in 2013, 2014, and have a member of the board appear April 13th meeting.
Council Marquez.
If I may, does anybody have any sheets or anything regarding abatements on water?
I thought we handed those out last meeting.
I guess I never got one.
All right.
I think you did, that's what I'm saying, I never received one.
I didn't, I have my list over there, I can grab it, but I thought everyone had them, and I think there's a number of the. You wanna look at mine?
I can get him a copy.
All right. Thank you. Is there anything, want me to?
Need it back, but I don't know,
He's got them over there.
but I need it back.
It's up to the pleasure of the council.
Can we lay this on the table for 2 weeks, so we get the copies, everybody? All right?
There's moved and second to lay item number 26 on the table to our next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We've laid item number 26 on the table. I believe the gentlemen are also here for item number 29. Chair would entertain a motion to accept. Move and suspend the rules, take item number 29. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. Clerk, please read item number 29.
Item number 29, resolution sponsored by Council Richard Della Sola, that the city services director appear at this meeting to explain why contractors leaving equipment on the streets overnight.
Council Della Sola.
Jerry, how you doing? I was looking around the streets. I know these contractors here for National Grid working, and I understand it's hard enough to park on the streets and everything. We all know that. They're parking during the week. You can see the pictures, everybody. I made pictures up for all my colleagues here, and Jerry has a set himself. There's pictures here. They park the backhoe, the compressor, the Bobcat on the streets. During the week, I guess I could accept it, but these pictures are taken during the weekend, and we know it's hard enough to park as it is in Everett, but some of these streets, Vine Street and Elm Street, they're taking up 4 to 5 parking spots, and the people on the weekends, every night is important, but they have nowhere to park when they come home from work and the equipment's on the streets. There's a picture of him on Vine Street, that's just stock. I mean, I do this line of work myself, so I know it's tough to bring the stuff back and forth every day. But to leave the stock like that on Vine Street, that's about a couple of parking spots alone. And the last picture, that's up at Elm on the hill, and that was left on a weekend. All that dirt up on the hill. If we had a rainstorm or something like that, all that's gonna wash down the hill, come down into the Glendale Park area where the fire station is. My suggestion is, if you want to do a trial run, let them park there during the weeks. I know it's just very difficult to get everything off the street and bring it back in the morning. But I recommend the weekends, they have none of this equipment on the streets. If we could supply them an area to park for the weekends.
That's something we can look into.
They'll have to bring it back. I know it's Devereaux, they're right in Everett, right down there, Teddy Peanut Butter. They could take everything back and have to bring it back Monday.
Right.
I mean, it's just very tough to park when there's nothing going on in your street. But I couldn't imagine having this in front of my house, and I come home and I have nowhere to park.
I agree. I can speak with them.
So, if my other colleagues have any questions on this issue?
Any other questions? Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to excuse customary thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do I have anything else?
I don't think so.
No?
The next item, I think there are some folks in the audience for, is item number 16. Oh, I'm sorry, well, this piece is before us. We did excuse customary thanks. Thank you, Jerry. What's the pleasure of the council? Council Del Sol, what would you like to do?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll keep an eye on this, so I'm gonna lay it over.
You're primarily speaking about weekends, or
Yes, let's just do the weekends, so that people on the weekends can have, you know, family members come and visit and have somewhere to park.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna lay this over for a month, our next meeting
Try to do our second meeting in May, or,
in June.
okay,
Second meeting in June, and we'll see how it's going at that point.
okay. Is there a second? Second. Jerry, you're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It's
Have a
been
good night.
moved and second to lay this over to our second meeting in June. All in favor? All opposed? You have laid this item over until June. I'm told that item number 16, we have some in the audience as well. Chair would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and... Second? It's been moved and second, to suspend the rules, take item number 16. All in favor? All opposed? Clerk will read item number 16.
Item number 16, resolution sponsored by Council Michael K. Marchese and Council John Lee McKinnon. Committee on Legislative Affairs, Elections, report that all advertisements be distributed evenly to all newspapers automatically. Committee voted to report back to the City Council recommendation, refer back to sponsor.
Second.
It's moved and second to accept the committee report. All in favor? It's been moved and second to accept the committee report and refer back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Referred item number 16 back to sponsor. And number 15 is written down as well. Chair would entertain a motion to...
Make a motion to take item 15?
It's moved and second to suspend the rules, take item number 15. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Clerk will please read item number 15.
Item number 15 is the Committee on Legislative Affairs report discuss implementation of the new snow removal ordinance, snow removal in general, and pothole repairs. The committee voted to grant further time and to invite the mayor to the next meeting of the committee.
Second motion.
It's been moved and second to accept the committee report and grant further time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have so moved. I believe we revert back to the normal order of business, which, if I have it correctly, is item number 6.
If I may, Mr. President, items 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 9, according to bond counsel, to be referred to committee. And item number 10, of course, is an on-routine matter, should also be, but according to the auditor, according to 6, 7, 8, 9, should be referred to committee, according to bond counsel.
So make a form of a motion, 6, 7, 8, 9, we refer to committee, which committee?
Ways and Means.
Ways and Means, and that the clerk just order a one-line explanation of each one.
If I may from the chair, councilors, on item number 6, we have a lump figure of $17,397, and, well, $500. The chair would recommend that where we're sending this in the committee, if we could please request that they itemize what particular items are being requested. That way we know exactly what we're voting on. No, that one I don't think is broken
No, I
down.
don't see it either.
Okay, so the motion before us is to take items 6, 7, 8, and 9 collectively, request an itemization on item number 6 for the various pieces within that $17 million request, and refer this to the Ways and Means Committee. All in favor? Opposed? You have so moved.
As a way of explanation, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all bonds having to do with the capital improvement plan, or with, I think some of them are, or the water sewer enterprise, just for the public certification.
Okay, that takes us to, there you go, it's a big word. We're at item number 10. Clerk, please read item number 10.
Item number 10 is an order sponsored by Council Craig Caponas, President, to transfer $200,000 from Water Sewer Enterprise Fund certified retained earnings into the sewer and stormwater repairs account for sewer and stormwater infrastructure.
Ways and Means, because it's the
It-
first time on the agenda.
Yeah,
So-
either you could do that, or you could lay it on
Refer
us,
to
so
the-
either way.
Well, why don't we refer it to the next meeting? I mean, this is pretty well clear, instead of referring everything to Ways and Means.
It's up to the council.
So I put that in the form of a motion to refer it to the next meeting.
Moved and second to refer item number 10 to the next meeting. All in favor? All opposed? You've referred item number 10 to the next meeting.
Mr. President, if we could, unless,
Council Mangan.
on items 11, 12, and 13, unless everything is in, everything is in order, I'd like to move favorable action on 11, 12, and 13, and then Mr. Clerk read that.
We could, well, let's inquire the clerk. Items number 11, 12, and 13, all in
Yes.
order?
Yes, they don't appear before the council unless everything's there.
Very good.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for favorable action on 11, 12, and 13 collectively.
There a second?
Um,
Council?
In regards to these junk dealers, are any of them open on Sundays? Are any of them allowed to be open on Sundays?
There are none that I know of.
Okay, because I've received a complaint saying that one of them is open on Sundays, and it even has a sign, says that it's open from 6 to 12, I believe, on a Sunday.
There is one open.
Do you want to take these individually? Or,
That's fine.
and you could address
Unless we
that
can
question?
Favorable action, and if the, if there is, you can maybe give the information to the clerk, and the clerk can go down there and just make sure they're
Sure.
not.
Council Napolitano.
Is it one of these three businesses? That's the
Council
I'm not-
DeFlorio, is it?
I don't know that, because
Okay.
I got the call to say
Okay.
that one, so I apologize. I don't know if it's.
Then from the chair, if I may, I think that Council Mangan's point is probably well taken. We could vote favorably on these, and then if it does in fact turn out that one of these businesses is the individual, or if there is another business that's operating when they shouldn't, we could refer that information over to our city clerk. So, Council Del Sola.
The one open on Sunday is down across from Everett United. Not Everett United, sorry. United Rental. United Rental, down on,
Second Street?
yeah, down the end,
That's not any of these pieces, correct?
right.
No.
That-
So,
That's
all
the
right.
one that's open on
So
Sunday.
I would say that we're back to Council Mangan's motion. It's been moved in second to take items 11, 12, and 13 collectively, vote on them, and have those votes recorded individually for each license. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk will read the roll.
Council Del Sol,
Yes.
Council DeFlorio,
We're voting on 11, 12, and 13?
Yeah.
Correct.
All of them collectively?
Yes.
No.
Council Hanlon,
Yes.
Council Mangan,
I'd rather get the
Council
report
Marquez,
first.
Yes,
Council, I'm sorry, Council McKinnon, somebody answered yes.
yes, whatever.
Council McKinnon, Council Napolitano,
Yes.
Council Sachetta,
Yes.
Council Sani,
Yes.
Council Simonelli,
Yes.
Council Capone.
Yes.
10 yeas, I'm sorry, 9 yeas, 1 nay.
9 yeas, 1 nay. You have voted favorably on each of the petitions. The clerk will record it as such. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 14.
Item number 14, Committee on Ways and Means report to address the overspending of city services, budgeted overtime prior to excessive snowstorms, with a recommendation refer back to sponsor.
Council Napolitano.
Recommend to refer back to sponsor?
It's been moved and second to accept the committee report, refer back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You've referred item 14 back to sponsor. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 17.
Item number 17, Committee on Legislative Affairs and Elections report to combine the Assistant City Clerk position with City Council Administrative Assistant position. With the recommendation, report back to the City Council recommendation, refer to the City Clerk, request he report back his opinion on the proposal at the first regular City Council meeting in May.
Motion made to refer back to city clerk for opinion, first meeting in May.
Accept the committee report?
Accept the committee report.
We have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to accept the committee report and refer this item to the clerk for response for the first meeting in May. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. The clerk will read the next item of business, I believe is item number 23.
Item number 23 is an order sponsored by Council Frank Capone as president to create a tax title collection revolving fund for expenses on processing same.
What's the pleasure of the council? We have a second on that? Second. Move and second to have Rich Viscay before us, please. Thank you very much, Rich.
You're welcome.
If you, Council Migan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fiscay, just especially for the people who are watching at home and stuff, could you just explain, you know, what this does?
Sure. Just recently, the legislature passed a law that allowed for cities and towns to set up a revolving fund for tax title fees, subject to approval by the council and the city. So what that's going to do now, every year, we budget around $150,000 to $200,000 for tax title expenses for all the legal fees that have to do with processing such properties. We get that money back at the end of the day when those tax titles settle, and that goes into the general fund. So, but a lot of cities and towns have a burden of funding that $150,000. This allows us to create a special fund whereby we can pay the money out for the fees, and then when we collect the money, we reimburse ourselves, so it's a zero net effect, and it'll save us a little bit on the appropriation side of the budget come 2016 if it's accepted by the council. So the idea is just to not front load that money, put it on the taxpayers, and then it comes back in, it flows to free cash. But this is kind of makes it a clean in and out of a special revenue account, and the law that allows for this has been put before you for a vote.
Thank you.
Councilor Del Sola.
Rich, I'm just curious, how long does it take from we put the money out until we receive it back?
I think actually technically we won't even put any money out. I think we'll just use that as a, when we collect the check, we'll bring that money in and put it right back out to the tax title attorney. So we won't even really float money or have a negative deficit in that. I think I explained it a little incorrectly. It's just it's a mechanism. It's almost like an agency account where it's not our money. We'll bring it in, we'll put it right back out, but we won't have to front load it in our budget. And then when we get it on the back end, we put it in as a general fund receipt. So instead of it going through the fund balance, coming through back through free cash and waiting that whole year to recoup the money, this would actually just fund itself almost as a on-you-go basis.
It's just good to have it there.
Yeah, it'll reduce the budget for treasurer next year by the amount that we funded this year. Theoretically, I'm not going to have to budget any money for tax title expenses in fiscal year 16 if you pass this, because I'll have the revolving account to handle those expenses.
Will this have to do anything with the casino down the road?
No, it's just when properties don't pay taxes and they go into tax title, and the lawyers get involved in certain measures that you have to take if it goes into foreclosure. So it just pays those fees, filing fees at the registry of deeds, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hanlon.
Thank you, Chief. Through you to our auditor. Two examples I want. If we're tax titled something for $10,000 and another parcel for $1 million, what would be the expenses on those?
Oh, it all varies. I mean, the legal work involved with tax title varies. It's not a cookie cutter fee. I mean, I think the filing fees would be the same, but the amount of work that the lawyers do for each property could vary. They could be in various stages of tax title, tax foreclosure. So
Okay,
it's not, we're billed per hour on the lawyer's fee, so it's not a one-size-fit-all kind of proposition.
These are outside lawyers? They're not city lawyers?
No, we have tax title attorneys.
Okay, so they work with...
Yeah, they're the pros. They handle all of our accounts. We, once we advertise them and put them in the paper and they don't get paid, then we turn them over to the attorneys for them to start.
Do they take like a percentage of what they recover?
They just take their legal fees that are involved. So that we always are 100% whole on our receivable. So it's an added-on legal fee to those fees. So.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. You had said that it saves on appropriations. I think you may have answered my question, but I just want to be clear on it. We're talking about the process of not having to budget
That's right.
and then move the money later?
Well, when the money comes in, if you appropriate $150,000 for tax title, we use that to process all of our claims, but when they get paid, that money goes into the general fund, and it kind of, it brings itself up through the free cash process. So the same amount that you appropriate, you'll have that much less in free cash because it won't flow to the bottom line. But it will be just a matching dollar for dollar in a revolving account. So legal fee, for example, if it's a $12,000 tax title and there's $2,000 legal fees, we'll get a check for $14,000. I'll put $2 in the revolving account, and then I'll cut $2 right back out to the attorney so that it's net zero effect. When we're paid in full for our taxes. We never take an apportionment or a reduced rate. It's, the fees are added on to the actual principal.
Now, does this fund get funded upfront first?
Nope.
Okay, so if you have expenses, is it conceivable that you could have expenses that outweigh the positive balance?
No. Only if it goes to tax foreclosure and it's auctioned off and we get less of a receivable than it's on the books, I'd imagine, but that's way down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Favorable action?
Seeing none, we'll excuse customary thanks. Thank you very much, Rich. Pleasure on the item. I think we had a
Favorable
motion,
action
favorable
on the
action.
Second, yep.
Moving second, favorable action. Clerk, call the roll.
Counsel Delasola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Mangan.
Yes.
Counsel Marquez.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsel Socchetta.
Yes.
Counsel Sani.
Yes.
Counsel Simonelli.
Yes.
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
11 yeas, 0 nays, you passed the order. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 24.
Item number 24 is an ordinance sponsored by Councilor Michael K. Marchese to amend the present rubbish disposal container law, choose a large, heavy 34 to 42 gallon rubbish bags for the months of January, February, and March.
Council Marquez.
Yes, we have, permission to have Mr. Navarro come before us.
We have a second? Moved and second to have Jerry Navarro before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have so moved. Jerry, I apologize. I didn't
problem.
see it
I
on the
missed this one.
calendar, but thank you for sticking around. Council Marquez.
Yes, Jerry, I know we announce sometimes if we have an abnormal amount of snow, you can put rubbish bags out. Do you like the idea that maybe we just have it automatically, or you think that's creating a?
I think it's going to create some problems.
Yeah.
First thing would be, we might not get snow. Secondly, we wouldn't be able to control the amount of bags that, residents might put out. The contents that are actually in the bags be another issue.
Something, I'll just take this piece here and I'll refer it back to myself, because, something, if they're gonna do it, they'll do it on a call, like we did last year.
I think that worked out well this year when we did the robocalls, so.
Because I needed it, believe me. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you
Seeing
very
none,
much.
excuse
Thank
customary
you.
thanks.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very much.
Thank
Jerry.
you. Have a good night.
Motion made to refer back to sponsor.
Moved and second to refer back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You've referred item number 24 back to sponsor. Clerk, read the next item of business, item number 25.
Item number 25, resolution sponsored by Council Cynthia Sani and Council Rosa DeFlorio that the administration, just lost my place, consider a sculpture to at City Hall on Fridays, as well as advertising a special telephone number. City Hall is closed on Fridays, or residents seeking, for residents seeking assistance. We have a communication. This is from the City Solicitor Colleen Mejia. Dear Honorable City Council members, following is the Mayor's response to above a referenced agenda item. Several months ago, the Mayor charged his management team with the task of exploring ways on how to reopen City Hall Fridays. Due to the fact that this is considered a mandatory subject of bargaining for those units covered by a collective bargaining agreement, the city must bargain these conditions in contract negotiations. The parties affected by this subject are currently in collective bargaining negotiations. Because the nature of the sessions is strictly confidential, I cannot divulge the content of such sessions in this letter. However, both parties are working diligently and in good faith to agree to a successor agreement. If you have additional questions or concerns, please feel free to contact my office, Colleen Mejia, Esquire.
Councilor DeFlorio.
We really weren't looking to open City Hall. We understand that that's gonna be a problem, okay? And I mean, and it's not fair to the employees. They're already used to having their Fridays off, working extra hours. Maybe this was a misunderstanding because we worded it wrong, but what we're looking for is basically, if you have someone coming on a Friday, on a Thursday night, you have someone, a relative come, and they need a parking permit. Where do they go for it? The police station doesn't do that anymore. So the point I'm trying to say is, if you have someone come from another state, whether it's Florida, and it's a relative of yours, and you have no parking for them, they come here now on a Friday, they're parked out on the street, and they're staying until a Tuesday or Thursday, you have to wait till a Monday to go get that permit at City Hall. If you happen to be working and you don't have the time,
Well,
on Friday night they tag,
Yeah, well, councilors,
on Sunday
councilors,
night, excuse me.
one person on the floor at a time.
Sunday night they tag.
Okay.
So they would get tagged on a Sunday night, okay? And the earliest you could get a permit is on the Monday. So what I'm saying is, there's gotta be a different way where city services open, that we can say, put a note on the door. You need a special permit, go down city services, or the police station, or somewhere. Someone's should be able to give these stickers on a Friday. So if I could have, maybe the chief of staff can answer this, if I could invite Melissa Murphy.
Do we have a
up.
second? It's been moved and second to have Chief of Staff Melissa Rodriguez before us. All in favor? All in favor? Opposed? By a vote of 1. All right.
I'll take it.
Thank you
I've had
for-
worse.
Thank you for appearing.
Good evening. Melissa Murphy, Mayor Dean Maria's Chief of Staff. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I think this is certainly something we can work together on. This year, over this past year, what we've done with parking stickers is to make them available online. It's something that we can work on with the parking clerk and the chief of police is to make these passes available online as well.
Okay.
The software that we're using for the parking stickers does have that capability, so we could expand the process that way. So that's certainly something that we can easily explore. You know, another option may be visitor passes that are more easily accessible, like Somerville does, where everybody has a visitor pass.
Right.
The danger of that may be that we already have 20,000 cars on our streets, and people may abuse that visitor pass. And we wouldn't want to see that. Something else that we've talked about with the chief is making it so you could buy your visitor pass at any time, and so you could maybe purchase a 1-day or a 3-day, you write the date on it and use it so you have it in advance. But I think the online option may be the best option
Yeah, I feel
for
the
the city.
online is the best option, because, for example, I never have company that comes out of state, and if I do, I happen to have a driveway, but not everybody has a driveway, and this might be something that doesn't happen all the time. But the other question is, even with a building permit,
With the building permit, typically what you see with the building permit, if it's an emergency, for instance, your porch falls or something like that, there's applicable laws that you do not need to get a permit in advance. You come in after you do the building. Most contractors that work with the city are well aware that you don't get a permit immediately. You have to come in and apply, and it's a couple of day process anyway. We are working with everybody basically to get that process online as well. However, even if you applied for a building permit online on a Friday or a Saturday or any day, you wouldn't be approved immediately because there needs to be inspections done.
no, but at least they would have it on record that I
you
applied for a
applied.
permit, and if inspectional service comes to me and tries to find me because I'm doing work without
Mm-hmm.
a permit, I have some kind of receipt.
So the new software that we have, the Viewpoint software, does allow for permitting to be applied for and paid for online. So we're in the middle of rolling out that software now. We expect that it will probably be live in June or July. If you remember correctly, it's something that you all budgeted for last year. We are moving from the GOTMS software to a software called Viewpoint. This software is a lot more user-friendly, not only for our inspectors, but also for the public. So right now, we have the applications available online, but you can't actually apply. The new software will allow for the application online as well. I know we had discussed maybe doing a vestibule system or something like that at Home Depot in the past, and determined that probably wasn't really feasible because you really need, most people fill out a building permit, you come here because you need assistance filling it out, unless you're a contractor who does it on a regular basis. But an individual usually needs a little help.
I mean, I don't think you need a permit all the time. Emergencies don't arise all the time. The
Right.
only thing that might arise is like a roof. God forbid, on a Thursday night, you have
Right.
a bad storm, and the roof falls off, and then obviously you have to get someone to secure that roof.
Yeah, the building code's pretty clear that if in an emergency situation like that, you do the work and you come in and apply for the permit after. As far as the phone number to call if you have an issue, you know,
I know Malden has like a 311 number for public safety
Yes.
reasons. Like, in other words, what happens is, I mean, you're great, Melissa, and honest to God, I can get a hold of you anytime, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But even for ourselves, on a Friday, if someone calls us and yeah, we call Jerry, we call city services, we call whoever we can. But if there's a number, like, that someone can just call, like a 311 number like Malden, in other words, you know, on, there's broken glass at Swan Street, for example.
so we took office 8 years ago. We actually looked into 311. We went to Somerville. We did the tour of the 311 center, and we found it to be very expensive, which is why we didn't roll it out at that time. Somerville was the first, I think, the first city in the state that started it. We can certainly look into it again. You know, if you have an emergency, and even if it doesn't seem like an emergency to you, but if it's glass in the park or something like that, you should probably call the business line for the police station, the 1212 number, because they know how to dispatch an ISD inspector, a building inspector, the police, obviously. You know, someone from city services, if it's a water main break, they have a list of people who they're supposed to call in an emergency. So if there's water flying down Dyer Ave, and you call the 1212 number, and it's 11 p.m. on Friday night, they have a list of exactly who they're supposed to call and when that incident
No, I
arrests.
understand that, but if you
Yeah.
have someone that comes home from work at 6 o'clock at night and they're saying that the trash wasn't picked up today.
That kind of thing, yes, understood.
Those are- I'm not looking for real emergencies. Real emergencies,
Understood.
we know exactly what to do. I'm sure people know exactly what to do.
I can be happy to look into the 301 number
I don't
for
want them
you.
to be calling the police because their trash wasn't picked up. at
Right.
6 o'clock.
But in addition, if something like that does happen, there are several ways that you can get in touch with us anytime, which would be through our website at cityofeverett.org. You can do a web Q&A or go in to see ClickFix, which we check all the time. The Mayor's Office Constituent Services checks it all weekend long, and as well as Facebook messages, which is actually the way that a lot of constituents speak with us. You'd be surprised. It surprises me all the time.
What I'm trying to avoid is, I'm trying to avoid calling you on the weekends.
Understood.
Texting you on
No.
the weekends.
And that's what we're here for. The mayor's office is here to take your phone calls on the weekends, and we're happy to do it, all of us. And, you know, the whole staff comes in and does what we need to do to make sure things go smoothly. That's what the mayor expects. So we'll certainly look into the 301 program for you again.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. I just want to go back a little bit to something that was said earlier. Now, first of all, how many years has it been that City Hall's been closed on Fridays?
Almost 3? About 3?
3. And at what point did working on Fridays become negotiated out of these collective bargaining agreements?
We
That
had
now they have to come back
Sure.
and be rediscussed?
When we actually went to start not working on Fridays any longer, we had to negotiate that. Because the hours of City Hall has always been in the contract. And Colleen would be a better person to speak on this than I, because she's the lead negotiator. But when we first negotiated just to not work on Fridays, we actually had to negotiate it out, because the hours were in the contract that City Hall was open from 8 to 4 and 8 to 12:30 or 8 to 11:30 on Fridays.
And
So
now
that's
we're
how
still-
that happens.
Now we're going back the other way, or at least having.
We're discussing it, and, you know, the mayor's always wanted to expand the hours as much as possible. As you know, we did the study a few years ago, and we're open more hours than any other city hall in the area, and he'd like to continue that process because customer service is important, which is why we try to be here as much as we can. So we've explored a lot of different ways to do it, and like Colleen said in the letter, because we're negotiating right now, in good faith, we can't really share those with you.
No, that's fine. I wasn't aware that it was negotiated to be off
Yeah.
on Fridays in the first place, and that was a question.
That's
I had in
why.
mind.
It started out as just off on Fridays in the summer, and we did a short agreement with them at that point. And then when it seemed to be working so well, at the time, when we were open on Fridays, we weren't really getting a lot of traffic. And on Thursday nights, we're getting a lot of traffic. And when we saw how well it was working, that's when we went to make it permanent.
Okay, thank you. And I just have like one quick comment on regarding the idea of visitors passes. First of all, being able to issue them online, I think that's a great
Be great,
idea.
yeah.
It makes it more convenient. But the only thing is that, what about the residents who are not online? I mean, it's very easy for us to go on the assumption in this day and age that everybody is, but everybody's not. I mean, I would like to see some type of manual backup, even if it's just coming to the police station during certain days of the week as a backup plan.
Sure. So
Because let's face it, the concerns are valid. If somebody comes into town, City Hall's closed, they can't get a visitor pass. They may be able to wait till Monday, but Sunday night, they're gonna get tagged. And if that's the case, we need to have a backup plan.
So the reason we don't have them available at the police station is because they cost money, and the city CFO and I have had this discussion with the mayor many times that we really only want money collected in the collector's office, just because we think it's the safest and most prudent way to do it. So if we did want to make visitor passes available at the police station, one way to achieve that goal may be to take the cost of the visitor pass away. So the visitor passes would be free, but you could go to the police station and get them.
Well, another way it means also is you could have them sign, a credit slip ahead of time, and then have them all processed on Monday.
Something like that. I just, we've really had a lot of discussions about only collecting cash in the treasurer collector's office in order to avoid any impropriety. and to have safeguards in place. So, you know, there's ways around it, and some ways we could think of, but that's the reason why we haven't had them available anywhere except for City Hall.
And right now, visitor passes can only be purchased with cash?
No, you can use cash, credit card, no personal check, right? Just cash and credit card, cash and credit card.
All right, so there should be, I know from my experience in the banking world, there should be a way to have them sign off and sign some type of credit slip, and then run them all on Monday.
Okay, we can certainly explore that.
All right, thank you.
Counsel Del Solo.
Going back to the visitor's pass, if we had a visitor's pass, if they got one, the cost, I'm not sure what you want to do with the cost of it, but if they had one, when you got your parking sticker at the beginning of the year, if everybody got a visitor's pass with that, but you would have to fill it out. So for example, if you went down to a house and they had the visitor's pass on the car that was not filled out, I would consider that you give them a ticket. Because they'll just keep using that same pass. But once they fill it out for a couple of days, then the pass is no good. Then when they come back and want another one, that's when I think if you want to charge them for an extra visitor's pass, I'm not sure what other cities charge for a visitor's pass, say in Malden or Medford or Somerville, stuff like that. We could look into what other cities charge them.
I think the Traffic Commission was the one that originally set the fees for the passes. So
Do you know
maybe,
what they are and other?
off the top of my head, I don't remember. Do you remember? No, it's different if you want a one day or a week, so, or a month, right? So,
I mean, if you want it for the weekend, I would think if you have somebody coming,
yeah.
like we'll say in out of state, you would know Wednesday or Thursday that they're coming. You can go Thursday night and get that pass. They can go Thursday night and get it, correct? From
Yes,
City
oh
Hall?
yes, we're here till 7:30. You can come in Thursday night and get your pass.
Okay, yeah, we can, I think they'd have to look into something like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I know we do have at least one other counselor that would like to speak. From the chair, we've gone from a skeleton crew on Friday into a visitor pass discussion, which is a very valid one, and it has excellent points to be raised. Maybe that should be a separate piece. We have Counsel Sani. Do you have any questions about the skeleton crew, or?
Yep.
I would give you free rein to talk about visitor passes, because everyone else talked about it, so, Counsel Sani, you have the
Thank
floor.
you. On the skeleton crew, I know we were talking about, you talking about bargaining. We were talking about non-union members. Maybe someone in the mayor's office would rather work on a Friday instead of a Monday. So that's what we were discussing. We didn't want going into costing the city any more money with the union workers and all that. So that's one thing we were talking about. And the other thing was, we mentioned, I am gonna mention now the parking, the police department, working, say, on a Friday, giving out tickets only, not any other day. So that would be something for that, if they could look into. I don't know if they can do that in their contract.
So the issue with the reason that we didn't go just non-union is there's actually not very many non-union employees in City Hall. The mayor's office, non-union, department heads. The mayor wanted to get the offices open that service the public. So I think his main goals at our conversations were, you know, the collector's office, city clerk, those offices that actually have interaction with the public every day. Not that we don't all, but who service the public for paying taxes or paying water bills or those type of things. So that's why we kind of were trying to negotiate with the union. But if the request is to have the mayor's office open on Fridays, that certainly, I'm sure the mayor would be agreeable to that.
And I do know that you did work with me when we had someone with a parking issue, and, you know, I do appreciate that.
No problem.
You know, and I did tell you about the 2 complaints that the person said they did call your office on the snow, 2 different areas, and they said they never got a call back, so that's something.
It's unusual, yeah.
You know, answering machines or making sure we get the calls
Yeah.
correctly, you know.
It's unusual because I know that we checked them from home and we had almost 60 messages in that one big storm
Right.
that we were all calling back. So it surprises me, but, you know, those things do happen, and
Right.
I apologize for that.
Okay, I'm all set, thank you.
Counsel Mangan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, Ms. Rodriguez, you know, Counsel Sani had mentioned maybe non-union employees or having the mayor's office, but wouldn't that still require people from union employees opening up the building and maintaining the building and stuff like that? And
The building was supposed to be open, but we actually have crews in here on Friday cleaning. So technically, they could still open the building for us on Fridays.
and that wouldn't be a union violation at all, maintaining the building, opening up the building?
No, our custodian, the facilities maintenance person is here on Fridays. They clean the floors and do that kind of stuff that they can't really do during the week because you wouldn't want someone slipping or that kind of thing. So he is here on Fridays.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Counsel Simonelli.
Yeah, this has been going on way too long here, but, You know-
We want to hear what you have to say.
Oh.
So you
I'm
take
gonna
your
tell you what
time.
I'm gonna say, if I can remember. As far as the skeleton crew, that's not needed. The people's been there for 3 years already. They know, they can't get the gist of what's going on here. Come on, you don't need to have a skeleton crew. You get the computer to use. You open up here on Mondays and Thursday nights. Come on, get over it, will you? So we don't need all this. Keep it as it is, and they don't want to learn this situation, well then, let them get fined.
Any other questions?
Usually customary, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
thank
What's the
you.
pleasure of the Peace Council?
Refer back to sponsor.
Second.
Moving second, refer item number 25 back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have so referred. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 27.
Item number 27, resolution sponsored by Council Rosa DeFlorio, requests that the mayor consider looking into having computer classes for Everett residents of all ages.
Council DeFlorio.
Do we have any correspondence from the mayor? No.
Can
Could
I
I
have
have
Melissa?
Melissa Murphy back up again,
Move
please?
second, have Melissa Murphy before us. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Melissa.
That's me, sorry.
Melissa, I'm not looking to open computer classes for the whole city of Everett. And I have 2 individuals that are calling. I'm not getting 100 calls, okay? 2 individuals, they want to learn the basic computer, in other words. They don't even know how to turn on a computer.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I understand that the Conley Center has computers, but unfortunately, these 2 women are not like 65 years old. They're not of age. They're
Okay.
55, 56 years old,
So 2 things. Remember we had the computer lab. It was not unsuccessful. It was not entirely successful.
Right.
People were coming in to use the computer, but people also coming to use the computer at the library, and people really weren't coming to the classes. So we have been exploring doing classes at the Conley Center. I'm sure that if there was people who are not 65 years old that would like to come to the classes, we would be happy to
'Cause this individual-
welcome them
yeah,
to
she
the
did go to
classes.
Conley
Yes.
Center. They told her no.
We'll welcome her. I'm sure we'll welcome
Okay.
her to classes.
So-
Now, the Everett High School does offer classes as well, basic classes there, but they are, I believe, $150. They meet
But
on
they're also a night.
Monday nights. Yes, they meet on Mondays. I believe Monday nights. I did look before we came, but yes, we would welcome them to
In
the
other words, this person,
basic
they only
classes.
want to learn the basic of how to get email, how to turn on the computer, nothing, you know, we don't want to go to Excel and all that
Right.
stuff.
But yes, I'm sure we can.
Okay.
We can
So
help
I'll
them
refer
out.
it to your office, Mr.
Yes,
Crosby, again.
have them call
She'll
either
be
me
very
or
happy.
yes, have them call either me or have them call Allison. One of the
Thank
two.
you.
No
Any other
problem.
questions? Seeing none?
Make a motion to refer it back to sponsor.
Second.
Excuse with the customary thanks.
Move
Thank you,
second.
Melissa.
Excuse
Should I
us.
stay for
Thanks.
28?
Thank you very much. On the Peace Council, you want to refer back to sponsor? Is there a second? Moving second, refer back to, did you have a question, Council?
For the legal?
Council, did you have a question? Rich, a question, no? That's fine, you can stay. We are pleased to have you here all night. On the Peace, it's been moved second, refer back to sponsor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? You referred item number 27 back to sponsor. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 28.
Item number 28, resolution sponsored by Council Rosa DeFlorio, City of Everett consider offering early retirement incentive program similar to what state is proposing.
Council DeFlorio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Melissa, has the mayor looked at this or considered doing something like this? Is it
So-
cost-effective?
In the past, if you remember, we've run 2 early retirement incentives. One was with the state in the Municipal Reform Act, and the other one was one that we did internally. Both were very successful. They're successful if they're people who leave that you don't really need to fill their position, or you can bring somebody in, perhaps that's been here 20 years, getting longevity, is at a step 5, and you're bringing this new person in at a step 1.
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
So yes,
And it also opens up the job for the new kids coming out of school.
right. So we've seen success.
Opens up the job market.
Yes, but, so we can't piggyback on the state one because it doesn't have a municipal aspect to it. So the issue with that is that any program that we can introduce, we can give them a monetary incentive to leave, but we can't add time to their age or their years of service. The program that the state is running adds time to their years of service and their age, so it's more beneficial to the employee.
We can't do that?
We can't do that without state legislation. We could introduce a home rule and try to do it that way. In the past, it was the Municipal Reform Act allowed us to do that, and what happened, if you remember correctly, it was when we, it was a large package. We
Right.
could do a home rule and ask for permission.
Well, that's what I think I want to do.
Okay.
A home rule petition.
Okay. And then the other, right, the other program, we just gave money. We offered a monetary incentive. It was,
Well, yeah, I know what you're saying.
so there's two ways to do it. You know, it's more beneficial if people can add time. It's less beneficial to the city because we are losing out on money because we have to put that money up to pay them for that additional time.
I don't think there was really, I'm trying to see what would be cost savings. And to me, like you said, you get a union worker that's a step 8 or 9, and now you hire a new, you know, that one retires, you hire a new one that,
Do you want to maybe refer this to committee? And what I can do is I can pull out maybe someone who retired from the incentive we offered and someone who retired from the state, and we can see at what the cost ended up
Sure.
being? Okay,
yeah, that's fine.
okay.
So we'll go to,
Wherever you want.
Ways and Means, or no? Where would it go?
Wherever you'd like.
Ways and Means, right? Go ahead.
Councilman McKinnon, you have questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple. On this, I believe we did this before.
Twice,
And
yes.
it was almost like the state-run one that they did. I remember, it was our parking clerk that left, and he left on this, the state-run one. So I believe that we can do it. It's just a matter on how we're going to do it.
No, so the one, Mr. Kelly didn't take the, that incentive. We offered an incentive in the past. We offered two. One was a state-run one. It was the
Yeah.
Municipal Reform Act. And that was the one where we added time to people or their age.
It's 5 years or onto your time, or 5 years onto your percentage.
Exactly, yes. We can't do that here because it doesn't allow municipalities to. So under this
We
program.
couldn't adopt it?
No, we can't adopt it. There's no local option for it. The way it worked last time was that there was a Municipal Reform Act and allowed us to do that. This time, there is no legislation in here that allows cities to piggyback on, unfortunately. So the only way that we could achieve that goal of adding time to to people, age or years of service, would be through legislation.
Okay, so we would have to send this in before the legislation for them to let us adopt this.
Right, because
Okay.
there's no language for
I
us.
mean, the reasons why we should adopt it, it would be the rate of retirement. You have a 7%er leaving, and then you would have a 13%er coming in.
Right.
That would be beneficial to the city,
Yeah, health insurance-wise,
everything.
pension-wise, right.
including the vacation time, sick time,
But they pay
everything, all
more to
accrued
the
time, stuff like that. That would be another additional savings.
Right, well, with the legislation that was passed before, there was a certain, you were capped out on the amount of vacation and sick you could take with you. We would want to make sure we built something in to cover that as well, right?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilman Casey.
One quick question, Melissa. Melissa, you took if you took that payment, that retirement one-time payment, can you come back and work for the city?
There was nothing, you're talking about the program we ran
The program
internally?
you ran, we offered retirement for $25,000.
There was nothing in the program that said you couldn't. I mean, you'd have to be rehired.
You have to be rehired.
You'd have to be rehired. There was nothing that would just allow you to come back. But there was nothing in there that said that you could never come back. They didn't sign anything saying that they weren't allowed to come back or anything like that.
Okay. I just thought there was a policeman one time who took it, and then the other one to come back again, they said that he couldn't come back.
I know, I know
That's,
about that.
that's all I need.
Councilman McKinnon.
I believe that what they do is they are allowing them retired to come back and do details, not to cross the bay,
Nothing to do
something
with
like that.
No, he had retired once.
Right, do we have any questions?
Okay, that's all, I was just trying to get to,
We- yeah,
Melissa, that's all.
Talk all
That's all.
night.
Excuse
I'll
the
talk to you
councilman
later
thanks
about
and
this.
make a motion to send it to Ways and Means and have Melissa bring
It's
the
been moved and
information.
seconded to excuse customary thanks. Thank you very much, Melissa. And the motion on the floor was to refer this to Ways and Means Committee and invite a representative from the Mayor's office. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's been moved and seconded, refer to Ways and Means, invite someone from the Mayor's office. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So referred. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 30.
Number 30 is an order sponsored by Council Frank Capone as president to transfer $94,066 from the budgetary fund balance into the following city council fund salaries and expenses into the newly created Office of Game Accountability and Development for the remainder of the fiscal year. Salary $67,500, the expenses $26,566.
Favorable action on the motion?
So moved and second, favorable action. Discussion, Councilor Napolitano.
Yes, could we ask the city auditor to come up, please?
Do we have a second? Moved and second to have the city auditor before us. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Rich. Councilor Napolitano.
Through the chair. Mr. Skate, the salaries and the expenses, Okay, how are these figures derived?
They were, I was forecasted out for a year worth of expenditures, and I cut it in half.
Okay.
So it's for 2 employees on the staffing side, and then related expenditures on the expense side. So
Okay,
the
and-
fiscal year 16 budget will probably look like that times 2, basically.
Okay, because this has been delayed as we've fall back, had to follow proper procedure, isn't these amounts now, haven't these amounts gone down? In other words, has there been any money already expended toward this?
Not in that budget. There's no money in that budget, so what I would do with the appropriation, I would allocate the cost to the appropriate budget for historical purposes. So there's no money to expend, so there's been no expenditures from that particular budget. But the monies that have been expended will be classified to that budget, which then will give you the history of how that budget would look going forward.
Okay, actually, I'm not sure I followed you. Let me.
No,
let me
the answer is no.
This amount is supposedly for the amount from January 1st of this year till
That's
June
correct.
30th?
That's correct.
Okay. And because there has been nobody filling that position and there's been no expenses, so isn't these figures to be amended now? Isn't the actual amounts needed less than this? Because now it's the end of April, only talking about 2 months left of the fiscal year. What I'm concerned with is that with salaries and there being discussion of filling it with somebody who's already on the city payroll, then where is 50% of this annual salary being applied then? They've already been paid up to this point. What point do they start drawing a salary against this office? As far as expenses go, the office doesn't exist. So now, are we talking about expenses for 2 months, or are we talking about expenses for 6 months? Because if this figure was derived at what it would cost for a year, divided by 2, we're only talking 2 months left of the fiscal year. So do you actually need $26,000 for expenses or $67,000 for salaries?
Well, it'd be hard for me to say exactly what the expenses would be, and if it's just kind of waiting for that money to be appropriated, then spend it. On the salary portion, the individual that is working now on that is being paid out of a different budget, but for transparency and historical purposes, if and when that money's appropriated, I will reclassify the salary to the proper budget so that we have a history of what we've been spending. So, yeah, we have been funding that position, but we haven't been funding it from the right account because that account doesn't exist yet.
Well, then where does the money, what happens to the money that's come out of the other account?
Well, it becomes, there's a debit and a credit, so you'll credit the account that he's been paid from, and then we would debit the new account, so that, in any case, any unexpended dollars would be turned back to free cash again, so, I mean,
Right.
could you engineer it a little bit? I suppose, I haven't done that, but,
My point is
I
that-
understand your point, but,
Yeah, my point is there's $94,000 being moved from free cash, where we may only need a third of that. And even if you're gonna be drawing money or reclassifying money from another account, you're still drawing $94,000 out of free cash. Well, I think that's over and above what you actually need. And I'm just trying to get a better handle on that. Because this actually came to us about almost 2 months ago. But
Right.
now we've gone through 2 more months. There's only 2 months left of the fiscal year. Do you need $94,000 to address the concerns of this department for 2 more months?
well, I can't answer for every nickel of 94,000. I will say that any dollar that isn't expended out of that's not needed will go right back to the free cash that it's coming from, so I'm not overly concerned about if it's a little more, but,
I'm concerned with moving more money than we need. That's what I'm concerned with. Okay?
I understand.
That's a habit and a practice that we need to always be cognizant of, if it occurs. And that's my main concern here, is that this is more money than what you really need for the remainder of this fiscal year. Now, as far as a reappropriation for, how it'll be budgeted for next year, we won't know until next month when we get the budget. But I just think that this is 2/3 more than what you're realistically asking if we follow the formula that you said, which is what the annual salary and what the annual expenses were divided by 2. Well, now there's only 2 months left, not 6. So I just don't want to draw more money out than we actually need. That's all.
Councilman McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. President, to Mr. Viskey, wouldn't this show as a deficit coming out? Or would it, how would you do that?
Well, any expenses that are being used right now for the purposes of this budget are being pulled from other budgets. So when this budget, if the department's created and the appropriation is made, I would reallocate those expenses to the proper budget so that if someone wanted to know the history of what was spent out of this particular budget, you'd have it. Right now, yes, there are expenditures being made out of available funds in different budgets for this purpose because we don't have an appropriation
And
yet.
it's bracketed as a deficit, correct?
No, I'm not, I'm not deficit spending any accounts, but I would, just for historical purposes, I would want to allocate the costs to the correct account so you can see the history of what was spent there. And also for the fact that we're also looking to get reimbursed 100% for these costs, so I want to allocate them in the correct budget, so it doesn't look like that we're taking money from other budgets that have nothing to do with the Office of Game and Accountability.
Now, speaking of that, when we do get reimbursed, is that a negotiable item as well?
Yeah, the entire reimbursement amount is negotiable. I think Dave said it best. We've come up with a enterprise fund type accounting system that we want to present to the WIN folk to show them what costs are as a result of the permitting process, and that is something that's not a fixed set amount. We have to represent that, maybe an apportionment of my time, an apportionment of the,
So it would be all
someone else's time.
departments included? correct?
All ones that have to do with the permitting process, you know, handling money and handling accounting stuff would certainly be financial. We'd have some ISD, maybe some police, some fire. Definitely, the Office of Gaming would be 100% reimbursable as we see it, so that's a fluid, ongoing process right now.
Okay, and realistically, I mean, we shouldn't anticipate 100%, correct?
I'd like to get 100% of what we ask for, if it's justifiable and clearly put to the group.
But
I
that's
mean,
subject for negotiation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council Sechetta.
Yes, listening to what you were saying to these two councilors, as I understand it, you're taking money from other accounts for this already. Do we have people working on this right now? Do we have a
Absolutely.
person that's doing this work?
Yes.
And a secretary?
Yes.
We do have someone working.
But they're existing personnel, so we want to eventually staff it correctly, but there are, day in and day out, there are needs that have to do with the WIN development, and there are people doing it. This is just a matter of trying to create the department and then allocate the cost back to it for accounting purposes and reimbursement purposes.
So eventually, you're gonna hire a new person or two new persons for this job?
I mean, I don't want to speak for the mayor on who he intends on hiring and what those people will do and where they come from, but the idea is that there'll be two people in that department running it going forward on a permanent basis until.
Right now, they're being manned by personnel that we have.
Exactly.
Thank you.
From the chair, we've got another 4 councilors that want to speak, and more than happy to address as much as you want tonight. I know that there are a lot of questions about this, and it's been stated more than once that it's something that's more of a policy question that I don't think would be fair to ask Mr. Viskey for. Would the council want to put this into a committee and this be the sole subject of that meeting? Or would you prefer to continue? Well,
I have.
well, Counselor, whatever the will of council is, we can do. It was in committee, and there were questions that were asked of the individual who was not able to answer those questions because it was above his pay grade. So answers have not been gained. So it is the will of this council. Under Rule 15, I can shove it into a committee. I'm not looking to do that. I'm leaving it up to the membership. There are a lot of questions on this. It's a pretty big issue. If the council wishes to continue to ask questions, I'm more than happy to entertain that. If the council wishes to put it into a committee so we can spend more time asking questions, that's fine too. I just want to know what the will of the council is. You want to ask the questions? Okay. Next online is Council Hammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tsay, I agree with you, and I agree with Councilman Napolitano, too, that I know we need the money because I know we have allocated, we have spent some of that money. We want to put it back into those accounts, and we would have next. But what I'm thinking about is that if we take this out of free cash, when is the state going to declare what our free cash is?
Oh, our free cash has been certified for months. We had 5.4 million certified in free
We
cash.
have that already?
We have 5.4 million. You've spent half of it in various reserve. We put money in stabilization and our CIP stabilization and also our OPEB liability. We've already had 5.4 million certified, and we put half of that back into various reserves. So we haven't spent any money from free cash on anything operational yet. We've reinvested it back into our reserve accounts.
And what you said is that the fact that this is half of the year and we're taking money from that, I don't know when these positions were appointed to. You know, I mean, I know that we
Then-
appointed out, the person's going to be in charge of that, like a month and a half ago.
Well, we couldn't appoint it because you just adopted the administrative code that creates the position.
Right, but
So we had some administrative
paying
stuff to
him,
take care.
haven't we, for doing that job?
We can't pay him the salary either because the funds aren't available, so
No,
there's,
not out of here.
no,
We have been paying him out of another fund.
we're paying him a different salary than what this position would be paid.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. If you're paying him, you want to use this money to put it back in there. And how much of it, how long have they been in those positions? Because I don't think we need to pay them back $94,000. And I don't think we spent all that much money yet.
He's been doing the job since the first of the year. But he's not getting paid what the salary says because there's no salary to pay him the proposed salary for that position.
All right, okay. Let me go back into the reimbursement then. Now, we said this is going to be reimbursed?
Yes,
Gonna-
that's
money's gonna be
the
reimbursed, okay.
host agreement says that we should be reimbursed for all related expenses to the permitting of the
Okay,
project.
now, that reimbursement is extra from what the casino is going to be giving us?
Yes,
It's not part of the amount of money that they have?
no, it's extra.
it's separate money
It's a
completely?
reimbursable expense. It's aside from the 20 million, the 5 million, and all that other stuff.
And this job lasts only until the casino is built?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Marquez.
Why didn't you just put this as a line item for the following year coming up instead of trying for a reimbursement now? And why didn't you just put it in for the new committee come July 1?
It was the wish of my boss to have this department established for January 1st.
So what we would do is we would move these two individuals from the city payroll and put them in here. Is that what we're saying?
At least one of them.
At least one of them.
I can't tell you who the other person would
And
be,
the
if it's
health-
internal or not,
Okay, and the
but
health insurance and everything would be paid by when also when it's got going over?
that's the idea, is to get fully reimbursed.
They would be our employees being paid by when?
That's the idea, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Council
welcome.
McKinnon. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Council Simonelli, you didn't get to speak on the piece yet. Council McKinnon, you'll be next. Council Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President, to you, to Mr. Viskey. You say this job started in January of 15,
Yes, sir.
and before that, did we vote, did it come before us before that? Or has he been working there, the two people there, and now it's coming up?
He's been serving in dual capacity, I guess would be the best way to say it.
But-
'Cause there's no appropriation in this account. The account didn't exist. This is a first for me. I've never brought a budget before a council in the middle of the year, but this whole casino thing is kind of new, and it brings on new challenges, so that's where we are now. Typically, yes, you'd see a new budget, a new division as part of the budget process. We just happen to have a lot of moving pieces going really fast, and we're trying to keep up and adhere to the host agreement and just forge ahead. So it's a little bit of an awkward mid-year creation of a budget, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just a bit cumbersome.
But, just why wasn't it come before us, before we put it in place, and then we sort of voted for it, now we're gonna pay his back pay since January 1st. So what I'm saying is, anything we come up between, no matter what, you have to come up to us before you make a new job.
Well, again, these parts are moving fast, and if we had known what we know now, a year ago, it would have been part of the budget that came before you, and it would have been part of the normal budget process, so.
I think that was done wrong. And by the way, who are these two people?
Well, they haven't been,
Well, who's part-time now?
Well, Dave Rodriguez is now serving in the capacity of the head of that department and the admin person. I don't have an answer. That would probably be a process that would have to play itself out, but there are people now serving in those roles, just as additional work, I suppose you'd say, you know, someone, you know, you have a job description, and someone says, hey, now you have to do this stuff, we do it, you know, it's loaded up, and we're just trying to create the department so that we can set it up, so we can submit for reimbursement and move forward.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council McKinnon.
Through you, Mr. President, to Mr. Viskey. On that note, are we going to be hiring behind the Assistant City Solicitor?
Are we backfilling that position?
Yes.
I believe the intention is to backfill that position, but again, everything's subject to the budget process, so when we get everybody's budgets in, they're due Wednesday, we put everything in, and hopefully we have a balanced, reasonable budget, and all the departments have a lot of requests, and those get vetted through just like any other budget process, so I think the intention is to backfill, but I don't want to hold anybody to that statement, but if you're asking, I'm going to try to answer you.
And then, I mean, my other question would be, okay, so that would be a permanent move for our Assistant City Solicitor.
It would be as permanent as this job entails, and then when this casino's built, I think that whole department goes away, and then who knows?
They would come back into,
I have
their
no,
role, or-
I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, Council, I'm sorry.
okay, I'm just looking into the future, trying
I
to, and say,
understand. But
well,
I just want people to keep in perspective that this isn't creating a new position that is on the burden of the tax levy. This is all supposed to be reimbursed as part of this permitting process. So I know there's some funds transferred, and I know there's some discussion on whether it's too much or not enough, but again, the idea is if you appropriate this money and we don't expend it, it gets diverted right back in the fund balance, which turns to free cash, and all the funds that we do expend with regard to this department are expected to be fully reimbursed by the Wynn Corporation.
but we will be refilling for the loss of our Assistant City Solicitor to this position.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. I mean, my whole issue with this is, this was presented to us as being as all about transparency. Now, you said the mayor had said that he wanted this to go first of the year, January 1st. Why did we receive an order beginning of March? Why wasn't this requested back at the first of the year, when the mayor first expressed an interest in getting us on board? I'd feel more comfortable knowing that I'm voting for something that is going to fill a full 6-month period. Can you answer that question?
No, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I don't, the idea of transparency is me sitting before you answering the questions. Why something didn't happen within 48 hours of a decision that was made, I can't answer that on behalf of the mayor.
My issues with transparency have to do with the fact that I'm being asked to approve $26,000 and $566 in expenses, and I have no idea what was expended and why. You're asking me to go ahead and approve a transfer of $67,500 for a salary going back to January 1st on a position that we didn't realize even existed until a month and a half ago. That's what I'm talking about, transparency.
Yeah, we've crossed that bridge, Councilor.
I realize that.
We've crossed that bridge.
But I also want I would prefer to have an accurate figure to what the expenses have, how much money has actually been expended on this project since January 1st?
I don't have those figures called out yet. I don't want to,
Well, that's why I don't want to give you a blank check and say, here's the money.
they're not giving us a blank check. There's some specific amount on that appropriation, and I explained that all the funds would be turned back. It's not expended.
It's not about turning the funds back.
And they're all reimbursable
It's about
expenses.
taking them out in the first place
All
when
right.
it's not necessary.
Okay.
And that's what the people that talk to me about this, about money in the city, go to. They go to, if we only need $100, why are we taking $200? That's reduced.
Well, have any of those people contact me if they want to know, because I'm happy to answer
But
those
you're not
questions.
elected by them.
Gentlemen, let's keep
And
it
that's-
right
and
to
that-
the,
and so
let's
are the
keep it
other
to the
people in
point.
this room. I just would like to have I'd like to have a more realistic figure as to where these figures are derived from, other than, you know, I.
Did you get a budget?
Do I have a budget?
Did you get the budget?
Can you show me what the expenses that?
Did the budget,
this
they were all,
Okay, gentlemen,
they were detailed on the
we're
budget.
starting
Not
to
in the budget.
derail. We're starting to derail.
Through the chair, Mr.
Valid
Chairman.
points, Counselor. And if you have questions on it, you go ahead and ask it. If we could please respond to the questions that are asked and leave it at that, I think that that would be
Well,
best
my
served.
question would be that I would like to see an accurate breakdown of what has been spent year-to-date on this
Which is a
on this
valid
project.
request, Counselor. So,
And I would make that in the form of a motion.
okay. Do you have any other questions for the auditor?
I don't.
Counselor Sani, I believe you're next.
Thank you. You're more or less trying to show true accounting, that you're gonna replace this money back to the department where you're taking it from?
That's right.
So that's basically what you're doing. So you're asking to put the money in this department, so you can pay back the department that you're taking it from now. And this way, you're gonna show your reporting, so we can get reimbursed from when it comes down to it.
Yes.
So that's all basically we're doing. So if you don't use the difference, you put it back to free cash, and that's what you explained over and over. You're taking the money
A couple times.
several times. So I understand what you're doing. You just want to show the true accounting. You want to show where you're taking the money from. It's not that you're taking the $67,500 and going to spend it in 2 months. You're just reimbursing the department that's supposed to be getting it from.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Favorable action on
If
the
I
amendment.
may, if I may from the chair, and again, these are questions that may not be fair for you, and they're questions that still have not been answered.
They're
yet.
all fair, as long as they're not the same question 5 times.
All right. Right now, we're all kind of surmising who we think the individual is going to be who's going to get this job, but that has not happened yet. As a matter of fact, we've just enrolled the code tonight. We haven't even ordained this code. This position doesn't exist yet. I understand. So that's why I'm saying it's not fair to ask you this, because it doesn't exist. And I share Council Napolitano's frustrations, because despite what's been said in this chamber, it has been to committee before, and answers have not been given. And again, that's not your doing. The problem is, we don't know who's going to take this position, because the individual who has the ability to make that call hasn't been here to answer that question. If the individual who we all assume is going to take that position, it's going to open up a hole in another department. We don't know what's happening with that. As one of my colleagues has stated, we didn't even know this position was even being kicked around until months down the road. We found out through the newspaper that this position supposedly exists. So the concern is there are some policy issues that have to be addressed. There's also a concern about expenses, $26,000 of expenses, which we have no idea. We're blindly saying, sure, okay, go pay expenses. Excellent point that's brought up. We need to know what we're expending for. What are we reimbursing? So there was a request for an itemized list, and I know that you always do your best to get that to us. So if the request of the body is to get that, I'm sure that you will accommodate that. At the particular point in time, we're looking at 2 bodies in this office. Do we even know what the salaries are going to be?
$90,000 and $45,000.
So 90,000 will be for the director, and then 40?
45.
45, okay. And
I was
as-
under the assumption you had that pro forma budget.
No,
All right,
no,
well, my apologies, but
So-
that wasn't
sure.
abundantly made clear to me.
Okay.
And
And
we're aware that the process was a little bit cumbersome, because I think we're all learning the steps. I mean, I believe this body's made plenty of errors in the first year of the new charter commission, so I believe it's
Sure.
a
It's a
learning
learning
process.
process for
I just don't
everyone,
like I don't like the posturing toward it. It's something that's not forthright when we're here every meeting
No,
to answer
I
every
think-
question.
No, and I don't think that that's the case. I think that, it's a learning process for everybody. And I think it was an oversight. And when it came up first, I actually addressed it way back when, to give an opportunity to address it, because I think it was an honest oversight. So nobody's pointing fingers, at least I'm not, and I'm sure that my colleagues aren't pointing fingers. But the reality is, at the end of the day, you can't fund a position that doesn't exist yet. So that's what we're
That
doing.
much I understand.
And my personal concern is that there's 2 months left in the fiscal year. And we are halfway through creating a position. So it's not even created yet. I'm uncomfortable funding a position that hasn't been formally, because if we vote on this tonight, we fund it, it's funded. And the position isn't formally solidified yet. It's one more vote, and I don't doubt it'll get ordained, but at the same time, it isn't yet. And I'm uncomfortable with funding something this close to the tail end of the year, I think you're better served making it part of a budget for the next fiscal year and then addressing it there. Up to this point in time, money has been taken from other departments to pay it. I'm sure that there's still funds available to be able to do it. We seem to be able to do that with a lot of things, so I'm sure that there's funds available to continue to pay it for the rest of the fiscal year. So my own personal feeling would be to hold off on this and then set it all up for the next fiscal year for funding. But, you know, the code is in front of us, it'll be in front of us at the next meeting for attainment, and then it would be established, and then at that point, then I think it would be legit to be looking for funding for it. It's just the way that the timetable ran out. And that's not an accusation to anybody, it's just the facts of where we're at. And so that's how I feel. But I too would like an itemized list of what expenses that we're talking about. And then in terms of salary, is that to cover going forward for the next 2 months? Or is any of that to reimburse the level of work? Because I'm sure a lot of work went into what's been done to this point. Do you know?
He's been serving since January 1st in this capacity, whether the official position was created or not. The job has been being fulfilled by that individual under his current title. So, yeah, there is an expectation that he would be compensated for doing that job as of January 1st if this appropriation goes
Okay,
through.
over and above the salary that,
No, at the salary that's recommended.
oh, at the 90, so retro to the 90 from the date of time that
Yes.
level of services were made.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I do have two hands in the air. I've got Counselor DeFlorio,
Thank
and
you,
then
Mr.
next is
Chairman.
Counselor Mangan.
The way I'm reading this, okay, because this has been to committee, that question was answered, about the 90,000 and the 45. Either that or I must have a magic brain that all of a sudden I just know all these answers.
So, okay.
Okay.
That's, yeah. Let's, if we have questions,
anyways-
if we have, counselors, please. If we have questions for our invited guest, let's focus
I
on
do have a
that,
question.
and then we can have fun with each other after that, okay?
Okay.
So are there any questions for our guest?
The way I'm trying to understand this, Richard, is that this position is from January 1st, let's repeat it again, for 6 months. This money, what you're looking for, is to put it in the right account so we get reimbursement from the Wynn Casino.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. So if we don't do this, by the end of the fiscal year, we don't get reimbursement because, well, we'll get reimbursement, but our budget is done. So the taxpayer will be paying.
I mean, I don't necessarily know that that's true. It's just a matter of trying to create the department and allocate the cost appropriately. It would be more cumbersome. Let's put it that way. It's a little more cumbersome.
And this is just so that these positions is approved only because to have the casino run smoother.
That's the idea, is to
that correct?
create a department that could be the pass-through of all this information from outside to within here, and then from in here to out there, and et cetera. So it's been talked about for a while. Again, I think we would have liked to roll it out in accordance to what everyone believes the proper way would have been to do it. I would have loved to have this as part of last year's budget. It wasn't. We're kind of stumbling through it here now, but I'm really, it's a little disheartening when it sounds like people are making it sound like we're trying to not be transparent or forthright with this information, when I think that I can answer any and all questions that are presented to me, so some of that stuff starts to, you know, it irks me a bit, and I'm sorry if it comes off that way, but it does.
My other question is, according to the new charter, and people could correct me if you want, aren't these questions supposed to be given to you ahead of time so you can come prepared with the answer?
Perhaps, but you know.
Yes, that is true. 7 days in advance, the
Okay.
specific questions or something related to the topic.
Okay, so we
And
get
and the
the,
guest would have the opportunity to say, I wasn't prepared for that. If you could get me a list of questions, I'd be more than happy to do it. But if you do have someone like Rich, who is always forthright and is willing to answer any questions we have, that's up to the guest.
so maybe we should start following the charter.
I mean, if I know the
Make it
answer,
easier for you so that
if
that
I know
way
the answer, I'm
you
happy to
have
give it
enough
to you.
time to
If
get
I don't know the answer, I'm happy to tell you I'll get it, but again, I think we're all learning the new charter, I guess is my point.
There's a favorable action on
Thank
the
you.
order.
Okay. And on behalf of this council, I would like to extend to you, because I don't want you to get the wrong idea. You know, nobody is pointing fingers, nobody is making accusations. The council has a function, and the function is to watch the pocketbook of the taxpayers. And at the end of the day, when we're out of this chamber, we're getting phone calls, and people are asking us hard questions. And if we can't answer those questions, we're not doing our job. And that's the whole theme of the questions.
I've told this entire council that they can reach me anytime if they have a question. If they really feel they'd rather wait until
Yeah.
tonight to ask them, that's their prerogative.
Well,
But I'm here every day.
And I appreciate that, but sometimes you don't know who the person asked the question of is. But that's where we're at. I just want to make sure that you don't walk away from this chamber thinking that you're getting attacked or anyone's being attacked, but that's not the point. At least it's not the point from the chair, and I'm sure the same goes to my colleagues. Just doing our job. Same way you're doing your job. I think, Council Mangan, you had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. You had brought up a few minutes ago that you weren't comfortable with, transferring this money unless you had the position created. What I would offer up is a kind of something in between, that we approve this, like we do it sometimes with licenses, with a contingent that the office, the position is ordained in 2 weeks. So with the, I'd like to recommend favorable recommendation on the transfer based on the position being ordained in 2 weeks from, or our next council meeting. So I'd offer that up if it's possible, is, if the clerk can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I'd like to offer that up so we can move forward with this, hopefully transferring it. And if the position is voted down in a few weeks, then the money never gets transferred. If the position is ordained in a few weeks, which I believe it will, then the transfer will go through.
The clerk just informs me of a very troubling point. Let me, if you could give me 1 quick minute, and then I'll be with you in a second. So it should have been a little bit more. Okay, so this particular piece, and this will speak to your point that we're all learning. This is definitely a learning process. This piece should not have been placed on this calendar as an ordinance. It should have been placed on as order. And where it has been advertised as an ordinance, I believe the clerk is telling me it needs to be re-advertised as an order, and it needs to come
It
before
is
us
an
again.
order. 94,000 transfers in order.
Number one, item number one.
Oh, yeah.
Creating
okay.
the position in the first place.
Well, we're
It should have
talking
been, it should have been in order, as opposed to an ordinance. It was advertised as an ordinance, introduced as an ordinance, enrolled as an ordinance. Unfortunately, our clerk has to be reintroduced as an order. It needs to be republished, and then it has to come before this body again for the vote. Did I get that right? Okay, good. So if there are any other questions of the 94,000, now we truly find ourselves with the cart in front of the horse
Make a motion to
again.
lay it over on the table for.
Do we have any other questions of our guest?
Excuse me, customer, thanks.
Seeing none, excuse the customary thanks, guest, thank you, Rich. On the piece, I guess, well, I mean,
Was it advertised?
I'm going to ask a parliamentary question of our clerk. Where we've enrolled, do we need to, do we need to reconsider and refer it back to sponsor? Or,
Yes.
because it exists as an enrolled thing, and we can't do it. So the chair would, actually, we have this piece in front of us. What's the pleasure of the council with this piece?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like the motion to hold this over for 2 weeks, but at the same time, I would like if the auditor could provide us with a breakdown of the expenses, so that way they feel more comfortable supporting this. I definitely understand, and I don't want them to think that we're being, we're persecuting them. I think you summed it up very well. But I'd feel more comfortable knowing what the expenses were, how the money's utilized. Then I can vote with a clear conscience and answer questions out there in the public.
Council Hanlon.
The motion
Council
is to-
Hanlon.
The
The
motion
motion was to hold it over for 2
2
weeks
and ask
and
the,
request an
chair
itemized
to
list
bring
of
expenses.
expenses, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Counselor.
Don't agree with that, but I do agree with the point of asking us to escape the information, this escape the information that we need. The other part about holding it over, doesn't serve us any purpose, we're gonna have to start the whole thing over again with the city clerk. So my motion would be to take half of your motion, the part about getting information, and the other one, we refer that to the city clerk. And on reconsideration, have you ever reconsidered this before?
No, we've got, if I can
Different piece,
clarify
different
from the
piece.
chair, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We've got the piece to create, well, to accept the administrative code as amended, which was number one. it was introduced to the council as an ordinance. It should have come in as an order. So we enrolled that in error. So we need to address that. Now, the piece that we have before us now is for the funding, which is the $94,000 funding. So what we need to do is figure out what we want to do about this funding issue, either independent of the, because it can be independent of the order. So whatever the body wants to do with that, we would do. And then we have to go back and reconsider item number 1, fix that, and then
Can
it'll
we
get
reintroduce
reintroduced.
this as an order for next meeting?
You're
Or do
confusing
you-
number
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
You can feel what's,
Yeah.
let's do what we have on
So
here,
it'll be
let's just
number
do
one.
a piece, we have a
Yeah.
motion before.
So
Yeah.
it has to go before.
Right, right. So the issue that we have in front of us right now is what to do about this 94,000.
Yeah, but-
We could lay it over to a meeting in June, we could lay it over to the end of May to give the order an
I'm sorry
opportunity to do it.
interrupt. Just to make it, I would like to lay it over, if we could, to our next meeting, and with, and get Counselor Napolitano had some concerns over the funding and stuff, so if we could get that information from
Why don't we
Mr.
lay it
Biscay.
over for 2 meetings in May?
Okay, hold
And
on.
then
Council
get the
Mangan has the
information.
floor.
I would like to,
You
I
know what I'm
just, the next meeting, in 2 weeks, I think that's fine. I think in that time, Mr. Biscay can certainly get a breakdown to Council Napolitano or anybody else, you know, what the concerns are, yourself, Mr. President, in terms of where the funding's going, where it's been already spent, and so forth, and we can have that information in 2 weeks. And just lay it over for 2 weeks, please, with those
I second that
sections.
motion.
Okay, it's been moved and second to move it to the next meeting with the request for expenses. Council McKinnon? Council Napolitano? Okay. So is that the only motion that we have before us? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so the motion before us is to lay this item over to our next meeting, requesting a breakdown of the expenses from our auditor with regards to what's looking to be reimbursed. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Now, the
Mr.
chair would
Chairman, can we
entertain a motion to
reconsider-
reconsider item number 1.
I'd like to reconsider item number 1, please.
Is there a
Second.
Moved and second to reconsider. Do we need a roll call on that, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah.
Let's see if we're overwhelming. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm convinced that that was enough of a vote.
Are you
Unless
sure?
someone questions it, we'll leave it at that. Item number 1 is back before you. And the chair would suggest that the proper motion is to refer back to sponsor. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
Make a motion to refer back to sponsor.
Moved and second to refer back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We are at item number 31, I believe.
Is he the sponsor?
Item number 31, ordinance sponsored by Council Frank Capone as president, revised ordinance of the City of Everett hereby amended by modifying section numbers listed below to read as follows. Section 1-483 is hereby amended by striking out the text of this subsection in its entirety. Replaced with the following, a preamble of an explanatory nature stating the reasons and intent of the proposed ordinance or reciting the facts leading to a proposed ordinance. And it was enrolled. It needs to be referred to the next meeting so it can be advertised, Mr. President.
Clerk refers, states
Make a
it needs to
motion
be
to refer
referred to the next
item-
meeting, so it can be published, and that would be the motion the chair would entertain. Moved and second to refer this to our next meeting to give the clerk the opportunity to publish it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You have so moved. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 32.
Item number 32 is an ordinance sponsored by Council Cynthia Sani to amend Chapter 13-7 of the revised ordinance of the City of Everett disturbing the peace by referring to the Legislative Affairs Committee, inviting the mayor's chief of staff and chief police relative to working with the committee on reviewing the general sound meter measurement levels and enforcement of violations to make appropriate amendment.
Council Sani.
Thank you. I'm gonna refer this to legislative affairs, and, I do have some changes I would like to make, and I will present it at the meeting, because we do have a lot of problems in the city with sounds and music and noise, and we need to get away from this meter measurement and start working with what we hear in our homes that's a street away, so, I'd like to make a motion to legislative affairs.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to refer item number 32 to legislative affairs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You've so referred. Clerk will read next item of business, item number 33.
Item number 33, an order sponsored by Council Frank Capone as president, that a one-year moratorium is hereby placed on the issuance of home occupation permits and letters of permission to Massport for any new livery businesses in the City of Everett.
Favorable action, Mr. Chairman.
We get to run a business out of your home, but under certain restrictions. I think it's best that this be laid over for 2 weeks while I get the information to the city council.
Motion made to lay this over for 2 weeks.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to lay this item over for 2 weeks so the clerk could get information on the piece. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have so moved. Clerk, read the next item of business, item number 34.
Item number 34, resolution sponsored by Councilor Michael Marquez, that the city arrange ward neighborhood meetings prior to summer throughout the city so residents can voice their concerns.
I'd like to send this to the mayor's office to maybe arrange for the 6 wards to have a meeting prior to the summer coming, so we can find out, what concerns the people when there's, 4,000 or 5,000 kids out in the street all night.
Second motion.
Second.
It's been moved in second to refer this item to the mayor's office. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You have so referred. Clerk will read the next item of business, item number 35.
Item number 35, resolution sponsored by Council Pete Ray and Napolitano, the Senator DiDomenico and Representative McGonigal work to get some relief or compensation for Everett residents from Massport for the increased air traffic over the city of Everett.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. I mean, it was a few months ago, we had a resident up here during public participation complaining about it. Of course, with the winter months, and all of our windows were closed, heaters running. But, the past couple of weekends, we've had some good weather. I've started noticing the increase in traffic. I mean, in my case, they fly right over my backyard. And they're coming in at 2-minute intervals, which is, after a while, on a weekend, pretty annoying. Now, I know other members of this council in the past have gone ahead and made these requests, but I don't think we've ever really asked for support from the state to see if there's anything else that can be done on this. So for that reason, I would like to refer this to Senator DiDomenico and Representative McGonigal. But before I refer that, I don't think this is an individual councilman issue. I think every one of us has something at stake at this. And so I would like to amend it, unless anybody objects. I would like to amend this to remove my name and have the entire city council on there.
It's been moved and second to amend the piece to add the entire city council. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? You have so moved.
All right, then I motion that we
Councilor
send a
Napolitano.
copy to Senator DiDomenico, Representative McGonigal, with a copy of this being sent to the mayor's office and community development, and ask for a response from our state legislators by our first meeting in September.
Second
That gives them time to work on this, research it, and get us some feedback.
Okay, so let me make sure I have that correct, Council. We are looking to refer the piece to Senator DiDomenico, Representative McGonigal, copy to the mayor's office, and we're asking for a response by our first meeting in September,
Also include community development.
in community development as
Yes.
well. Okay. All right, is that good? Okay.
That's it.
The second, okay. Is there any discussion on the piece? Okay. It's been moved and second to send this to Senator DiDomenico, Representative McGonigal, Community Development, and a copy to the mayor's office, looking for a response for our first meeting in September. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have so adjourned.